Diaspora Economics. Hey everybody, this is Shaggy, and I'm here for the Women of Diaspora Economics Summit. And I'd just like to say much love and respect. I, uh, I was raised by women, and I'm a fan of women, and I'm inspired by women, and my whole makeup and everything that I've done in life was fueled by some really powerful women in my life. And I wrote a song, Strength of a Woman, which was a very big hit for me. And I dedicate this to you guys, right? Much love and respect.
Of life astounds me to this day. I give it up for the woman. She's the constant wind that fills my sail. Oh, that woman. With a smile and a star, she'll protect you like a child. That's a woman. She'll put a smile upon her face and take you to the higher place. So don't you underestimate strength of a woman. Strength of a woman. Woke up this morning, I got up with a scent of a woman. Just picture if you would what life would be. Ain't much good without a woman. She can be a constant pain. Oh, that woman. But those hips, she's got me whipped, and it's just too hard to resist. What a woman. Hey, she'll put a smile upon her face and take you to the higher place. So don't you underestimate strength of a woman. Strength of a woman. Tender lips that's so sweet. Gentle words she softly speaks. Such an angel when we meet. God bless the ground beneath her feet. She can take you on a high. Be your comfort when you cry. But if you look into her eyes, you'll see the strength of a woman. Strength of a woman. She'll put a smile upon her face and take you to the higher place. So don't you underestimate strength of a woman. Strength of a woman.
Hello, one and all. Hello, one and all. I am Constance Newman, Chair of the African Renaissance and Diaspora Network, and I'm here to welcome you to the 2021 Women of the Diaspora Summit on Economic Equity. So welcome in every language possible. My first order of business is to introduce the summit, which is a 3-hour period of time for you to participate in serious and interesting consideration of the ways in which women and girls, particularly of the diaspora, are not now treated with economic equity. Then the summit will go on to consider how to bring about economic equity for women and girls. My second order of business is to thank Shaggy. Shaggy, the many times Grammy winner and one of the 2021 Super Bowl commercial winners. For any of you who watched the Super Bowl, you could see he was terrific. But what we want to thank him for now is for opening the summit and then speaking later with us about his support for equity for women and girls. Now, I said with regard to language, we want to be sure that you know that we have the opportunity for you to follow the program in English, French, Portuguese, and Spanish. And for those of you on Zoom, all you have to do is look at the bottom of the screen and select your preferred language. Next thing I want to do is to make sure that you understand that we want all of you to participate as much as possible in this summit. So what we are looking for you to do is to ask questions and give comments. And in Zoom, what you do is you indicate in the chat box what your question is, and we'll be monitoring that. Through YouTube and Facebook, you submit your questions in the comments sections of those vehicles. Now, what I want to do next, and just to say that it is my distinct honor to introduce the co-moderator of this summit, Ms. Marie-Jeanne Serban-Thomas, publisher of Rune Magazine, French Republic. Marie-Jeanne, I want to say this and then ask you a question. Since it is our job to move the program in an informative and interesting way so that we can meet the expectations of all who are participating, my question is this: what should the viewers and the program participants expect to happen in the next 3 hours? Marie-Jeanne.
Welcome to Women of the Diaspora Summit on Economic Equity. Basically, this summit is organized in the following 6 parts. 1, opening remarks by the sponsors and partners of the summit. 2, a keynote statement from Mr. C.D. Glynn, President of the UN African Development Foundation. 3, statements from special guests about the Red Card campaign. 4, panel on women's plight, economic inequity where women of Brazil, Ethiopia, South Africa, and the United States focus on the cause and aspects of economic inequities with emphasis on education, jobs, and health, and consideration of domestic violence. 5, panel on paths to economic equity, where women from Colombia, United States, Tanzania, and Ghana are discussing examples of solutions in public policies, education, and business. And 6, Red Card campaign status and the call to action and the closing. Now, I would like to introduce Dr. Jibril Jallo, the President and CEO of the African Renaissance and Diaspora Network. Dr. Jallo, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Connie Newman. Thank you, Marie-Jean Serbin. Dear guests, 2020 and 2021 have been very, very difficult because of the devastating impact of coronavirus. In memory of those who lost their lives and in solidarity of those who continue to suffer from the impact of COVID-19, I'd like us to symbolically observe a minute of silence, please. Thank you. My brief introductory remarks will be in two parts. There will be a short video on the African Renaissance and Diaspora Network, linked to the African Renaissance and Diaspora Network Red Card campaign. And then I'll come back and make a short statement after the video. Could the video be screened, please? The African Renaissance and Diaspora Network serves as a coordinating body to unite the efforts of individuals and organizations towards a single purpose, which is to unite African nations with people of African descent wherever they are around the world. The African Union Commission declared the diaspora as the sixth region of Africa. And for that purpose, our work is to make sure that there's a strengthening of ties between Africans inside the continent, the physical continent, and people of African descent. One of the major goals of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals is SDG 5. SDG 5 has as a goal to bridge the gap between women and men. We therefore have called on the convening powers of sport and culture in order to help us bridge the gap between women and men. And within that framework, we have a major campaign, the Red Card campaign, a partnership between the United Nations system, FIFA, governments, civil society organizations, Webster University under the leadership of the Chancellor of the university and other institutions, to give a red card to all forms of discrimination and violence against women and girls. You can go to this link in order to sign the pledge to be part of that movement, that campaign internationally, and the link is www.redcardpledge.com. Thank you. I'd like to thank Webster University. I would like to thank Webster University for putting together this video. Dear guests, the African Renaissance and Diaspora Network chose today to convene the second Women of the Diaspora Summit because we wanted this to coincide with the United Nations International Day of Women and Girls in Science. We want the narrative to change on this issue by making it coincide with the United Nations International Day of Women and Girls in Science. With the world facing a deadly coronavirus, global economic toll, this summit will examine the harsh and disproportionate impact that COVID-19 has on the economic and social conditions of women and girls. Second point that I wanted to make is the Women of the Diaspora Summit that you're attending right now is one of two programs specifically focused upon gender equity that the African Renaissance and Diaspora Network has developed to assist the United Nations in building awareness on the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. The second program is the one that you just saw on the video, which is about the ARDN Red Card campaign. We are also here to celebrate two important milestones affecting women and people of African descent. First point is, through the efforts of the Republic of Costa Rica, under the leadership of the first Vice President of Costa Rica, Epsi Campbell, the first woman in that position throughout the Latin America, the fourth woman of African descent in that position. Therefore, under the leadership of the first Vice President of Costa Rica, the United Nations General Assembly adopted by acclamation 31 August as the International Day for People of African Descent. Second point to celebrate is, after 243 years, the United States of America has elected its first female vice president and its first vice president of African descent into office. We all are here today to say that the continued discrimination, as well as mental, physical, and emotional violence perpetrated against women and girls must end now. Must end not in 10 years, but now. Not next month, but now. Women's rights are human rights. We must fight the apartheid of gender as forcefully as we fought apartheid in South Africa. In Africa, where I'm speaking to you from, we have a saying that if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Today's summit did not just materialize out of thin air. Today's summit is the result of the dedication of a huge number of people. So before we delve into the very exciting conversations that we're going to have, I would like to express our gratitude to the summit co-organizers, the Republic of Costa Rica, especially First Vice President Epsi Campbell, UNFPA, with its executive director, deputy executive director here present, UN Women with the executive director, Phumzile Mlambonguka. The wisdom and guidance of their respective leadership, as well as the support of their respective teams, were critical in the organization of this summit. I would like also to express our profound appreciation to our partner, the United States African Development Foundation, under the able leadership of C.D. Glynn, who's our keynote speaker today, for their gracious support and sponsorship of this summit, without which we would not have been able to organize this second summit. I would like to thank the dedicated team of the African Renaissance and Diaspora Network, who worked tirelessly to make this summit happen, including our partners at Webster University, the National Council of Negro Women, the Rainbow Coalition, the Rainbow Push Coalition, amongst others. First of all, I would like also to express our appreciation to you, the illustrious speakers and panelists we have here today. Not only have you agreed to share your wisdom and experience with us, but also your efforts in the fighting for a more equitable world for all. The Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations has been very supportive of the efforts of the African Renaissance and Diaspora Network to popularize the Sustainable Development Goals in Africa and in the diaspora. Through you, we would like to thank the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, Her Excellency Amina Mohammed. Finally, I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us here today to make a difference. Thank you again. And with that, it is now my pleasure to introduce the luminous speakers from our co-organizers. We will start with Assistant Secretary General of the United Nations, Deputy Executive Director, Programs, Dr. Jenna Keita. You have the floor, please.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jallo. Excelentísima estimada señora Epsi Campbell-Barr, First Vice President of the Republic of Costa Rica, Dr. Pumzile Mlambo-Nguka, Executive Director of the UN Women, Dr. Jibril Jallo, President and CEO of Africa Renaissance and Diaspora Network, Honorable Constant Newman, distinguished guests and esteemed partner and colleagues. Dear Shaggy, thank you so much for the beautiful anthem. Chère Marie-Jeanne, good day, bonjour, buenos dias. We at UNFPA, we are honored to join forces once again with ARDN, the government of Costa Rica, UN Women, and our other partners on the second installment of the Women in the Diaspora. Economic empowerment is vital for the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goal and the ICPD Program of Action. And so it is a critical part of UNFPA integrated approach towards gender equality. We are partnering with the private sector across the globe and building policies and programs focused on identifying gaps and gender inequalities in the work environment. We are engaging with large female-led global supply chains to improve access to women's health services such as family planning and maternal health. As we celebrate the International Day of Women and Girls in Science, let us also be reminded of the importance of inclusive access to technology and science. We need to grow more female role models in STEM, and we should create a more conducive and safe educational and work environment for them to unleash their potential and their career aspiration. Addressing gender inequality in digital and mobile connection, UNFPA works towards shrinking the digital divide, particularly for those most vulnerable, marginalized, and discriminated against. We have also engaged local actors and young people in the development of dissemination of relevant messages through the use of smartphones and other platforms easily accessible to them. Shrinking the digital and technological divide can give women and girls the opportunity to increase their income and employment opportunities. It also facilitates access to knowledge and information, including on comprehensive sexuality education and sexual and reproductive health and services, fundamental for economic empowerment. In response to the COVID crisis, UNFPA has doubled its effort to combat and prevent gender-based violence, safeguard the provision of sexual and reproductive health services, and ensure the access to reproductive health services and commodities. We are cognizant of the disproportionate impact of COVID in communities of people of African descent and marginalized groups, and we put special focus on addressing their needs through tailored and targeted initiatives. We welcome and continue to support ARDN's Red Card campaign as a pledge to give a red card to all forms of discrimination against women and girls. We join in encouraging partners to help us in continuing to build this momentum and secure at least 1 million signatures by the FIFA World Cup in November 22 in Qatar. Dear friends, the evidence is clear. Investing in women economic power sets a direct path towards gender equality, poverty eradication, and inclusive economic growth, and ultimately the achievement of the 2030 agenda. Women in STEM need to be encouraged from the very beginning. The mother of that future student need to be supported. There is a need to address the issue of the role of women of African descent and indigenous women in childbearing and childcare that challenges their chances to earn revenues. So we should work on how to bring the market close to the women's rights right in their community so that they can fulfill their potential while taking full advantage of their reproductive health and rights. In this decade of action, let us redouble our joint effort and make this a reality for women and girls across the world. We count on you as partner to walk with us in this important journey. I thank you for your kind attention.
Technical issues.
Jibril, greetings. And greetings to the Executive Director of UNFPA, Natalia Kamen, and greetings to the Vice President of Costa Rica. Thank you for being here. We are meeting at a critical time when women are facing the challenges that have been imposed by COVID-19. The pandemic has a disproportionate impact on women and girls. Women are losing jobs in larger numbers. 2/3 of the jobs that have been lost are jobs that belonged to women. Women are experiencing the surge in gender-based violence. The burden of care at home has increased. We therefore need to see a response that is directed to these identified challenges. We need to raise our voices and to take action. It is worrying that the economic assistance in many cases is not being directed to women, not women in the informal sector, not women in the service sector who do not have enforceable contracts, who do not have savings that will enable them to go back to pre-pandemic economic activity. Generation equality as a response to the unfulfilled promises that were made in Beijing aims to respond and close the gaps that we have identified when we evaluated what has happened in the 25 years of implementing the Beijing Platform for Action. We invite you to be part of this process in order to make sure that we amplify the voices of women in the diaspora and the 6th region of the AU. I also invite you to participate in the activities of International Women's Day, whose theme will be on women's leadership. Women's leadership will also be a theme of CSW 65, together with ending violence against women, because the voices of women are missing in the decisions that are being taken on the issues that have to do with the pandemic. We are counting on you as collaborators, as sisters. We have together to stay woke and fight for ourselves. Thank you.
Right. We would like to thank the Executive Director of UN Women, Her Excellency Phumzile Mlambo Nguka, for this message. It is now our pleasure to introduce the first Vice President of Costa Rica, Her Excellency Epsi Campbell Barr, who has been so supportive, and most welcome, Your Excellency Epsi Campbell, our first Vice President of Costa Rica. Unmute. Needs to be unmuted.
She's muted.
Mute. Mm-hmm. That's
Buenas
it.
días. Un saludo especial a Jibril, a Diane, a Constance, a Phumzile, a a Dien y principalmente a todas las personas que nos están acompañando el día de hoy. Es para mí un verdadero placer y un honor participar en la segunda Cumbre Mundial de las Mujeres de la Diáspora, un evento presentado por la Red del Renacimiento Africano y organizado por el gobierno de mi país, Costa Rica, ONU Mujeres y el Fondo de Población de las Naciones Unidas. Ha sido extraordinario tener una coordinación con mujeres de la talla de Pumzile y de Natalia Canem. Las mujeres de la diáspora africana tenemos una fuerza y una resiliencia que tiene que ver con el esfuerzo de nuestros ancestras y ancestros, que fueron capaces de vencer obstáculos y de dar extraordinarios pasos en favor de la justicia, la democracia y los derechos. Somos herederas de generaciones de mujeres y hombres valientes, luchadoras, capaces de convertir la historia y las leyes en libertad y el dolor en esperanza. La pandemia de COVID-19 amenaza con retroceder el desarrollo por primera vez en los últimos 30 años. Desarrollo que a muchas de las mujeres de la diáspora aún no les ha llegado. Por eso necesitamos unir esfuerzos para mitigar los impactos de esta crisis global y para emprender un camino y generar los cimientos de la justicia, la inclusión y la solidaridad. La desigualdad social que vivía el mundo antes del 2020 ha aumentado drásticamente en los últimos meses y tiene como principales afectadas a las mujeres, a las poblaciones históricamente que han sido vulnerabilizadas como pueblos indígenas, afrodescendientes, y a quienes ya de por sí les era difícil la situación, les ha obligado a transitar por un camino repleto de nuevas vulnerabilidades. En el caso de las mujeres, el Programa de Naciones Unidas para el Desarrollo proyecta que 47 millones de mujeres y niñas caerán por debajo de la línea de la pobreza. Una lamentable cifra que se añade a otras 435 millones de mujeres que se encuentran en esa condición. De acuerdo con el Banco Mundial, las personas afrodescendientes tienen 2.5 veces más probabilidades de vivir en pobreza y solo el 64% de las personas de ascendencia africana terminan la educación primaria. Es por eso que Costa Rica ha intentado unir esfuerzos con todo el mundo para promover una agenda sólida con el fin de avanzar en la igualdad, la justicia y la inclusión, no solamente en el continente, sino a nivel global. Celebramos que el 31 de agosto haya sido declarado por las Naciones Unidas como el Día de los Pueblos Afrodescendientes. Quisiera agradecer el liderazgo de Jibril Diallo, de la Red del Renacimiento Africano, de ONU Mujeres, del Fondo de Población, en este compromiso de avanzar en la agenda. Son aliados extraordinarios para fortalecer los esfuerzos que realizamos desde aquí, desde Costa Rica, con el fin de lograr avances en la región y una garantía y protección de los derechos y la dignidad de las personas afrodescendientes. Para el empoderamiento de las mujeres es imposible, es imprescindible que hagamos llegar dinero a las mujeres en general y que en particular a las mujeres afrodescendientes y de la diáspora, para que se desarrollen sus negocios a nivel comunitario, a nivel nacional y a nivel internacional. Por eso quiero que me acompañen a promover el Banco Internacional para los Pueblos Afrodescendientes y para las mujeres, para brindar una oportunidad concreta a las mujeres y a las comunidades, cerrando brechas de desigualdad en las cuales tenemos que actuar. Necesitamos muchas más mujeres empresarias, mujeres afrodescendientes empresarias, mujeres de la diáspora africana. Necesitamos mujeres como la empresaria colombiana Rosario Lozano, que impulsa un extraordinario negocio de salud centrado en la salud mental. La segunda propuesta que quisiera proponerles el día de hoy es que nos convirtamos en la red para el poder económico de las mujeres de la diáspora, que esta red promueva una estrategia para generar oportunidades económicas para las mujeres y que trabaje activamente en la incorporación de las mujeres de la diáspora en la ciencia, la tecnología y las matemáticas. Justamente hoy, Día de la Mujer y la Niña en la Ciencia. Pero que también la red nos garantice que cerremos las brechas digitales que enfrentamos las mujeres de la diáspora. Estoy segura que la vicepresidenta Kamala Harris será una aliada para la promoción de los derechos de las mujeres y las niñas, y particularmente las que hoy se encuentran muy atrás. Estoy segura que el liderazgo también que tendrá el nuevo gobierno de los Estados Unidos en el multilateralismo fortalecerá esta agenda que venimos impulsando. Finalmente, Jibril, quisiera invitarle a usted y a la Red del Renacimiento y la Diáspora Africana para que juntos nos convirtamos en el comité organizador junto con las agencias de las Naciones Unidas para conmemorar el próximo 31 de agosto, Día Internacional de los Pueblos Afrodescendientes. Y quisiera que aprovechemos esa relación extraordinaria, Jibril, que usted ha tenido, para que invitemos a Shaggy aquí a Costa Rica y que con nosotros conmemoremos por primera vez y levantemos esa agenda que tiene que ver con las mujeres de la diáspora y que tiene que ver con los pueblos afrodescendientes de todo el mundo. Finalizo diciendo que estoy completamente segura que juntas, con la generación de la luz, la gente más joven, entusiasta y comprometida, podemos caminar hacia la abolición del racismo y toda forma de discriminación como paso fundamental para cimentar las bases de sociedades justas, equitativas y prósperas. Es el momento de forjar un futuro más sostenible, más justo, más libre y más inclusivo. Muchísimas gracias.
Muchas gracias, señora primera vicepresidenta de Costa Rica, por el honor de estar aquí. Y es un honor para nosotros trabajar debajo de su liderazgo y también trabajar en el entrenamiento de los lazos entre los africanos en el continente africano y los de la diáspora. Muchas gracias, Epsi Campbell, mi hermana. Muchas gracias. We now have the honor and the pleasure to introduce the keynote speaker for the second Women of the Diaspora Summit, Economic Equity, Mr. C.D. Glynn, President and Chief Executive Officer of the United Nations African Development Foundation, who has not only been a privileged, a special partner to us, but has also been very, very supportive of all our efforts as African Renaissance and Diaspora Network. C.D. Glynn, you have the floor, please.
Thank you, Dr. Diallo. Your Excellency, honorable ministers, dignitaries, officials, special guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and allow me to simply state, all protocols observed. I'm truly grateful for the opportunity to address you and thankful to my friend, mentor, and the chair of the African Renaissance and Diaspora Network, the ARDN, the Honorable Constance Newman, and to the president of ARDN, Dr. Jibril Diallo. Thank you, Connie and Jibril. When I was invited to speak at the Women in Diaspora Summit on the topic of economic equity, I actually jumped at the opportunity. I immediately agreed because I want to be involved and to do as much as I can on this important issue. As my mother's son, my sister's brother, my wife's husband, and the father to my 3 daughters, I strive to be an ally and an active advocate for women's economic empowerment and advancement. I'm fortunate to be surrounded by family and friends made up of strong, powerful women, including the Honorable Constance Newman, who have been and are positive role models for me. This has instilled the personal conviction that I hold for this topic. In my professional life, and specifically in my current position as President and CEO of the U.S. African Development Foundation, I've been equally fortunate. USADF is a small government agency that makes a big impact throughout Africa, established by the US Congress 40 years ago to invest directly in African grassroots organizations, associations, enterprises, and entrepreneurs. USADF provides grant capital of up to $250,000, local capacity building support, and convening opportunities to underserved and marginalized populations, including smallholder farmers, pastoralists, refugees, youth, and most important for today's summit, women. In promoting a bottom-up, community-driven, participatory approach, we do development differently. We create and catalyze pathways to prosperity for underserved communities by responding to local realities, local needs and priorities, and supporting local solutions. I've been privileged to witness firsthand the positive impact and transformational economic equity that occurs when we invest in women to address some of the most pressing global challenges manifesting in Africa, specifically around food insecurity, energy poverty, and unemployment. These are tremendous challenges, but I would like to share some success stories, some positive examples of programs aligned with SDG 5, gender equality, women's economic empowerment, and other SDGs with you. Let's take food insecurity and USADF's supported efforts on women's economic empowerment aligned with SDG 1 and 2, no poverty and zero hunger. It is well known that agriculture and food insecurity disproportionately impacts women. And according to a 2019 report from Oxfam, because agricultural gender inequalities remain strong, women farmers are particularly at risk of hunger, especially when crisis strikes. On average, rural women account for nearly half the agricultural workforce in developing countries. Despite their crucial roles in household food insecurity, they face discrimination and limited bargaining power. Patriarchal norms create disadvantages for women farmers, specifically in land rights, productive resources, such as no access to credit, extension services or inputs, insecure employment, and exclusion from decision-making. And this was startling within the household. Because of weaker bargaining position, women frequently eat least, eat last, and least well. USADF grantee Belege Rural Women's Multi-Purpose Cooperative Society in Nemba County, Liberia, is an example of how this reality can be changed. Belege's members are encouraged in a variety of agricultural ventures that have transformed their lives and communities for the better. USADF awarded a 2-year capacity building grant to Belege and a follow-on grant for the expansion of agricultural production and marketing efforts, and the accomplishments have been impressive. The women's cooperative members have formed 23 village savings and lending groups where they save their money and lend it to each other to expand their business. The cooperative has diversified its income generating activities from rice production and palm oil processing to include market gardening, livestock rearing, farming, and cassava processing. Starting with a meager savings, net income of the organization increased to more than $100,000 within the first 2 years of USADF's assistance. Life for Belege's women members has improved in meaningful ways since USADF funding. The average annual income from cooperative members has increased from $150 to $500. Perceptions of gender roles have been affected. Women members are involved in rice production, which is traditionally a man's cash crop. Men now weed and harvest together with their wives. In addition, the women sell their rice, oil, and other farm products and control the money earned. And with increased purchasing power, women's cooperative members have improved access to healthcare. They can better afford to educate their children, and they provide the basic needs of their households. Now let's take a look at energy poverty and USADF's women's economic empowerment efforts align with SDG 7, affordable and clean energy. Our programs in this space resonate with the Deloitte Consulting article entitled Women, Energy, and Economic Empowerment. The article states that there are two well-accepted narratives related to economic growth. First, vast gender inequalities remain throughout the world and are closely linked to poverty and instability. Second, access to modern energy enables economic advancement. Until now, however, exploration into the relationship between these two narratives has been limited. What is missing, it seems, is the linkage between energy access and women's economic empowerment. So USADF has done just that via a Women in Energy Challenge. The challenge is a grant program focused on finding, funding, and supporting women-owned and managed off-grid solar, wind, hydro, and bioenergy enterprises across the African continent. A great example is a project initiated by SOSAI Renewable Energies Company, a social enterprise based in Kaduna State in northern Nigeria, founded by a young woman named Habiba Ali. The project involved the installation of 2 solar mini-grids, 2 solar kiosks, and 2 solar dryers for agricultural processing, all in different communities in Kaduna State. The target communities had never been electrified, and the expectation of the project was to connect 50 households to the mini-grids. To date, hundreds of households and businesses are connected to these mini-grids, and many new businesses have been created. All of this thanks to the solar kiosk and the solar dryers. The SOSAI project is a strong example of the far-reaching economic and social benefits of linking renewable energy access and women's economic empowerment. Lastly, let me take a look at unemployment, and USADF's women's economic empowerment efforts align with SDG 8, decent work and economic growth. USADF has an intentional focus on finding, funding, and supporting women entrepreneurs, providing them with grant capital, capacity building support, and convening opportunities so that they can develop, grow, and scale their enterprises. We're well aware that talent is equally distributed, but opportunity is not. So in aligning our efforts and contributing to the US government programs such as the Academy for Women's Entrepreneurship, the African Women's Entrepreneurship Program, AWEP, and YALI, the Young African Leaders Initiative, we are creating more opportunities, promoting economic equity, and assisting women entrepreneurs in overcoming constraints they face arising from gender discrimination, work-family conflict, difficulty in raising capital, lack of infrastructure, challenging economic and political environments, as well as lack of training and education. According to a 2019 World Bank report, Sub-Saharan Africa is the only region in the world where women are more likely than men to be entrepreneurs. USADF supports many African women entrepreneurs. Fortunately, I don't need to share any of the specific stories with you because you will be able to hear directly from some of them. Later in the summit program, you'll hear from Caroline from Tanzania, who's the founder of Apps for Girls. And you'll hear from Bato from South Africa, founder of Dream Girls Academy and Math Maniacs. Utilizing and leveraging technology, these two women of the diaspora are providing the skills, tools, self-esteem, and competitive edge girls and women need to become effective leaders and change makers in their communities. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't make a brief mention of the disproportionate impact of the COVID-19 pandemic and related measures to control its spread is having on women, especially women's economic empowerment and employment. Given the fact that women are overrepresented in many of the industries hardest hit by COVID-19, such as food service, retail, hospitality, and entertainment, women are losing their jobs and their businesses are suffering. To address some of these challenges, we launched a Pan-African USADF CARES program. CARES, CARES was an acronym, Capital for African Resilience Building and Enterprise Support. We provided immediate relief capital for business continuity, liquidity, and working capital needs. We supported women in reconfiguring, retooling, and pivoting their businesses given the new normal they now faced. And we assisted many in reimagining new businesses altogether. We're proud of our efforts to support women entrepreneurs to survive, adapt, in some instances, thrive amidst COVID-19. As I conclude, I'd like you to hear one more story, but not directly from me, from Agnes via video. If you had a cup of coffee today, like I did, you may be indebted to Agnes and her efforts. Agnes is a member of a coffee cooperative in Uganda, and her story represents thousands of others from African women who report to USADF being able to go back to school, pay school fees for their children, provide more diversity in their family's diet, purchase vehicles, and engage in other income-generating activities due to our efforts to spur economic equity. There's an African proverb which states, when you educate a man, you educate an individual. When you educate a woman, you educate a nation. Given all the impact I've seen and some of what I've shared, the proverb has been tweaked a little in my mind, and I now think of it differently. As follows: when men are economically empowered, individuals are economically empowered. But when women are economically empowered, nations and the world will be economically empowered. Let's do more together to economically empower women. Thank you, ARDN, UN agencies, Government of Costa Rica. Thank you all, and enjoy the video and the rest of the summit. Thank you.
The majority of USAID's grant investments are focused on supporting agricultural-led economic growth for smallholder farmers who are the backbone of African economies. In Uganda, coffee accounts for 20 to 30% of our foreign exchange earnings each year, and more than 3.5 million families work in coffee-related activities. The bulk of the country's coffee is produced by smallholder farmers working plots of less than 2.5 acres. Uganda's USAIDF grantee, Ankole Coffee Producers Cooperative Union Limited, provides a system for smallholder coffee farmers to maximize their profits and productivity. Ankole, a farmer-owned export coffee cooperative union with 8,200 members, stretches across the mountains of southwestern Uganda.
Cup test will be very nice. First of all, the ADF grant gave us the first moisture meter, gave the union a starting point. We started by exporting 1 container. When we received that grant, we went 22 containers that very year.
Today, Ankole Coffee is selling in the excess of 200 containers of coffee annually, buying the precious produce for more than 10,000 farmers, and the benefits are far-reaching.
Kuna mazire kuzo mu cooperative society okubiri ngwene ibintu bikatandika kugenda gye ekyo kubanza kyabyona bakaguma nibatuhereza nk'entundu barizo kwanikaho kahuba zo kushombesa akasasiro ebisomero bwo kwishara mwene byona bikabagye. My first born ari musene ya kashatu natware mutwaro nshanje burtamu tinkuje basize nyonyenka ntine mwana wo gukorera kandi nanyenyenka obunabe ninza kushwerwa nkabandi yaringo rwa diploma konka hati mbasize kushoma bachelor's degrees zanje kurugwa umwani n'ikindi tubasize kugura mwije motoka umwana gwitu tukumara kwanika tugutaha motoka tugutwara society.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. After hearing all these outstanding presentations and seeing these very informative videos, I would like to introduce another video that will be coming up now. And this will be from UN Women. And it's a video that was prepared for International Women's Day 2020. It's about drawing the line, about what went before and what will no longer be accepted, and where women wish to go. Please go ahead.
What defines a generation? Is it just about the year you were born? Or is there something more? We may have lived through different decades, different circumstances, different countries, but we all share in the global everyday push for our rights, for justice, for a world that is equal. Perhaps what defines our generation isn't our age or our background, but the line in the sand that we have drawn. We take to the streets to speak out against discrimination, and we work tirelessly behind the scenes. We stand up for peace.
We are fed up with the war
and economic justice. We start with a statement and watch it become a movement. We have come a long way, but the fight isn't over, and our rights are still under assault. It is time to take action. Let us be the wake-up call the world needs.
The eyes of all future generations are upon you.
Be the first, the youngest, the best, and then make sure no one is left behind. When someone tries to silence you, raise up your voice.
Let us wage a global struggle.
Change everything, or change just one thing. As long as you do something, whether you're new to changing the world or have been in the fight for a long time.
Each knows exactly why we are here.
We are all together, united for gender equality. And the future we create for women and girls is up to all of us.
Thank you so much for this interesting and inspiring video. This next segment includes a statement from Olympian Mrs. Jackie Joyner Kersee, who Sports Illustrated for Women voted the greatest female of all time. Also, she is contributing to the world through the work of the Jackie Joyner Kersee Foundation, whose mission is to instill youth in the Greater East St. Louis area with the dream, drive, and determination necessary to achieve academics, athletics, and leadership. Next, we will hear from Honorable Angela Brown-Burks, Member of Parliament of Jamaica, who will introduce the Honorable Olivia Grange. Finally, we will highlight that the RID and red carpet is our symbol that violence against women is a violation of all enlightened rules, and we will witness the signing of an RRDN red card agreement with Honorable Filson Abdullahi, Minister of Women and the Youth Chancellor of the Democratic Republic of Ethiopia.
Hello, I'm Jackie Joyner Kersee, and I would like to say thank you for having me, to Dr. Strobo for engaging me in a conversation around the summit that I really wasn't aware of, and then to have the invite from Dr. Diallo, and to be able to just bring greetings to you. And as I continue to really learn more myself, being, for those of you who is not familiar with who I am, being a 4-time Olympian, winning gold medals, 3 gold, a silver, and 2 bronze. But what's more important to me is the work that I do in my community. Having the Jackie Joyner Kersee Foundation and Center, and in an underserved area, and where I grew up, going off to college at UCLA. But more importantly, it was just valuable and invaluable for me to come back into the community. And as I sit back and just hearing, you know, the Shaggy and the video, the empowerment of women, empowering young girls, you know, for me, having my mother as my role model. But then by the time I was 18, I lost her unexpectedly to a real bad disease, and how we talked about maybe one day I'll go to the Olympics, and she never got an opportunity to see me compete on that level. But as I venture, you know, off to school, but coming back into the community and having the Jackie Joyner Kersee Center built in 2000, and being able to have a program built around girls called JJK Winning in Life, around character and leadership, and just hearing all the stories, you know, about empowerment. And to me, it's about access. We give our young girls tools, but how, once they have these tools, how are they going to have access, you know? And so just being here today to be able to share, it's so important with me. I support the Red Card campaign. You know, maybe one day I can be a global ambassador. You know, I done things in the athletic world, but how can we bring the athletics to what we're trying to do? Because discrimination, racism, I face. When you talk about the inequities and equity, you know, women do the same amount of work and you still paid below subpar. So to me, thank you for this invite and just being, you know, on the panel today. And as I continue to learn and grow myself in trying to empower here in my community, but also how can I help be a part of what you're doing to empower the world with girls and women when we talk about the science and technology, the future leaders of our generation. Thank you.
Hello. It is my pleasure to introduce our next speaker. And I wanted just to remind that she's going to be able to join us by video and not by audio and not video. And therefore, we're asking that her picture be placed as soon as she joins us. This is a powerful Jamaican, a veteran politician. She became senator and parliamentary secretary in 1983. She has been Minister of State in the office of the Prime Minister. She has served as Minister of Information, Youth, Sports, and Culture. She was elected in 1997 by the people of Central St. Catherine to be their Member of Parliament in the Jamaican House of Parliament. She has been instrumental in Jamaican music and culture for decades. She's recognized at home and abroad. And she holds an Order of Distinction Commander class for her contribution to the Jamaican music industry, cultural development, and public service. She also has the distinction of being appointed CARICOM's first champion for culture. Ladies and gentlemen, a political, cultural, and community activist, a proud mother and grandmother. She speaks to you today as Minister of Culture, Gender, Entertainment, and Sports in Jamaica, the Most Honorable Olivia Babsy-Grange.
Okay, thank you. Are you hearing me?
Yes, we are.
All right, thank you so much, Angela. I just want to greet all my colleagues who are listening, and ask you to give me 1 minute here to get my to just get my remarks up on and running here. Yes, today I bring you greetings on behalf of the Most Honorable Andrew Holness, Prime Minister of Jamaica, who has appointed me as Minister with responsibility for gender affairs to share with you this second Women of the Diaspora International Summit today. Today we also celebrate the International Day of Women and Girls in Science, providing the opportunity to change the narrative around women and girls by creating an enabling environment for their economic empowerment. Are you hearing me okay? I want to commend the organizers of this summit, the African Renaissance and Diaspora Network, ARDN, the Republic of Costa Rica, the UNFPA, and UN Women, as we come together to explore the issues surrounding economic equity for women and girls. As we examine the challenges women and girls face, as well as acknowledge the strides we have made, I am proud to be a member of a government which has launched the Prosperity Agenda, at the heart of which is improving the lives of every single Jamaican man, woman, and child. Critical to achieving higher levels of prosperity in Jamaica is our continued and accelerated progress towards gender equality. As we expressed in the National Policy for Gender Equality requires equal enjoyment by women and men of the socially valued goods, opportunities, resources, and rewards, including economic participation. There is an overwhelming body of evidence showing the undeniable connection between women's economic participation and prosperity. Let us apply that thinking to the matter of climate change, for example. One of the biggest issues in our world today. I recently participated in the launch of a project which aims to facilitate a gender-responsive approach to climate change adaptation and mitigation in Jamaica. Through this project, we want to ensure that women are part of every single decision and action that we as a country take to halt climate change. While climate change affects us all, we have come to realize that it affects some of us more than others. It affects women more than men. According to the United Nations, more susceptible to the effects of climate change, particularly in developing countries. And there are practical reasons why this is so. The poor are more likely to live in what we call flood-prone areas, and they are most vulnerable to storms and rising seas. The poor are more likely to depend on agriculture and fishing for a living and could lose their livelihoods in more frequent and intense droughts, rains, and storms. And among the poor, women are especially vulnerable. They are more likely to be the poorest of the poor with access to fewer income earning opportunities. But women are also important agents of change in the work to adapt to and stop climate change. We believe that women must be fully integrated into the planning, financing, and implementation of our national response to climate change. We all benefit when women and men work together to make the important decisions about our daily lives. Women must be part and parcel of everything. There is no doubt that anywhere the situation of women improves, the overall economic condition in the country also improves. And that is why we continue to invest in education and training and providing grants and other types of funding to put women on the path to economic independence. The government of Jamaica recognizes that gender equality is an essential requirement for the attainment of our development goals and is resolute against inequality and discrimination on the basis of gender. Yes, there is much more for us to accomplish, but we have made commendable strides in the fight against gender inequality. These include, one, implementation of our national policy of 2011, which aims to provide an enabling environment to achieve gender equality and equity for women and men in our society. Two, efforts to eliminate gender disparity in wages by reviewing legislation on equal pay for equal work and ensuring that the provisions are enforced. Three, the appointment of 8 women to serve in the 21-member Senate. This is in keeping with the national policy, which recommends that the Senate be comprised of a minimum of 30% women. This achievement of 38% indicates that we are moving in the right direction to achieve gender equality. 4, we have been very deliberate in ensuring that all new government boards are constituted in keeping with the national policy, with each board now required to have a minimum of 30% of either gender represented. 5, improved working conditions of women and men in low-paying sectors by establishing work conditions and social security benefits in keeping with the ILO decent work agenda for workers in lowest paying sectors, including contract workers. 6, Joint Select Commission to consider and report on the Sexual Harassment Act 2019, which is chaired by me as minister responsible for gender affairs and facilitates consultations to enact a Sexual Harassment Prevention Act to protect women and men whose quality of life is affected by intimidation, hostile or offensive environments caused by unwanted sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, and crude sexual behaviors. 7, phased and strategic implementation of a 10-year national strategic action plan to eliminate gender-based violence in Jamaica. The contribution of women is vital to achieving sustainable development, peaceful and secure communities, and poverty eradication. The entire society benefits when women can completely access their rights, have equal access to, and control over productive resources, including land, labor, and capital, are able to shape digital, financial, and property products, services, and policies. I want to thank you all for listening, and I pledge Jamaica's support to the call to action of women's economic empowerment today, and I reaffirm Jamaica's commitment to continue to remove obstacles that prevent women from contributing to economic activity, especially as we begin the process of building back stronger from the effects of COVID-19 pandemic. I thank you very much for listening, and God bless you all.
La ministre. You cannot. We will now introduce Minister Filsan Abdullahi, the Minister of Women, Children and Youth.
Yes, finally. Hello, good evening, good morning, good afternoon. Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, good, because I'm having a little bit of internet problem. So if you can hear me, that's very good. Honorable members, state representatives, honorable special guests, esteemed panelists and participants. I can't put into words how honored I am to be invited as a special guest to be the women of the Diaspora Summit, focusing on economic justice and equity. It is a privilege to share a platform with such an accomplished gathering of women. So please accept my appreciation of all your efforts and inspirations, sisters. To continue, I would also like to express my gratitude to the African Renaissance Diaspora Network for organizing this summit, as well as for all the ongoing red card campaign to stop all form of discrimination and violence against women and girls. My country, Ethiopia, has taken the lead on popularizing the campaign, and I am happy to mention that we are in the process of delivering or developing an action plan. Today's summit focused on economic justice and equity, with a special emphasis on the disproportionate impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on women and girls, especially more than this time. While the economic inequality between men and women has existed before the pandemic, COVID-19 has exacerbated the plight of many women, especially those in the informal sector, pushing them over the age into poverty. We are talking about over 740 million women around the world who work in the informal sector, and 749 million women who lack protection against exploitation and harassment. The recent assessment on gender responsiveness of COVID-19 initiatives in Ethiopia, conducted in collaboration between my ministry and UN Women, has shown the numerous ways the pandemic has caused economic hardship on women. Access to finance has become constrained. There has been immense burden on women in female-headed households to provide for their families. The pandemic has meant lesser economic opportunities for women who own small businesses. Labor migrants have returned to rural areas without much savings. In addition, COVID has increased the time women spend on unpaid care work and domestic responsibilities, and created a shadow pandemic in the form of violence against women. I believe the solution starts with recognition of the problem. We need to shed light on economic inequality and disproportionate impact of the pandemic on women and girls. It is also critical for all stakeholders, including government, international organizations, civil society organizations, and private organizations, to adapt a gendered lens on their development initiatives, to be more inclusive and equitable. Bringing women into positions of leadership and decision-making will have a significant impact. Resource is an issue of crucial importance. Investment that go towards women's economic empowerment bring large returns. Ethiopia has recently unveiled a 10-year development plan with a vision of making Ethiopia an African beacon of prosperity. Gender and social inclusion is one of the pillars of the development plan and focuses on ensuring rights, representation, and resource for women, children, and youth. Enhancing the economic participation of women is a priority, with initiatives including setting up women's market centers and women's development fund. By 2030, we should be able to create a world where women achieve equal pay in all professionals, where they participate in all economic opportunities, where they make up half of the members on executive boards of large companies, and where they are no longer hindered by discrimination and violence. I am confident that these discussions during this summit will contribute towards making this a reality. I'm also sure that the women gathered in this summit will play a large part in making the world a more equitable and safer place for women and girls all over the world. Thank you very much.
We will now have the symbolic signing. Dulu de me donner la vidéo. We'll now have the, thank you so much, Minister Filsan Abdullahi. It's a great pleasure to have you and an honor. So we will now have the symbolic signing of the Memorandum of Understanding between the government of the Ministry of Women, Children, and Youth of the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia and the African Renaissance and Diaspora Network. So we will have the symbolic signing, and then we will lift the MOU for posterity's sake. So you start with the signature, please, Madam Minister Filsan Abdullahi. And then I will come second. Camera on the minister, symbolically signing the MOU.
Okay, Jibril. Yes.
And then I've signed as well. So now we both lift, that's it, the MOU, there you go. If you can just put it on the side, so that's it. Yeah, we can just see you for the, that's it, for the photo's sake. Still on the side, completely on the side. I mean, not in front of your face. I apologize.
I'm trying to see if I'm really putting it on. If you really, because I'm very excited for this, and I don't know if you guys can see it.
Madam Minister, could you hold it away from your face? We would like to take a photograph of you and Dr. Diallo, and we can't see you behind the document.
So, okay, well, okay.
That's it. Much better.
That's better.
Yeah.
Good.
Is that all right, Gordon?
Yes, that's fine. We've got that.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, everyone. We want to change the pace a bit and introduce okay, yes, we want to change the pace a bit and introduce another cultural item, And this time we have an all-female band from Senegal by the name of Orchestra Jigin Ni. And they are a fabulous band. They are on the way up and they will be making a big name for themselves. Could you bring them up, please?
Hello again. That was wonderful and delightful. And I just know that it is raising everybody's spirit here in this session that has with it information that is troubling. But what's great about the people who have presented up to point, it's not only the facts they're giving, but they're giving a great deal about the hope for the future, which now I think helps in leading to the next session, which is dealing with two panels. And we're going to start with the first panel on women's blight, economic inequity. And what we're doing is we'll start out with speakers giving remarks, opening remarks, and then we're going to move to a discussion, and that discussion will be amongst the speakers, but it is at that time we're also going to encourage you to ask questions or comments to engage them further in a discussion of the topic. So the people who are going to be speaking in this order, Ms. Flori Lieser, President and CEO of the Corporate Council on Africa, Ms. Cida Bento, Executive Director, Center of Studies of Labor Relations and Inequalities of Brazil, Ms. Denya Gale, UNFPA Country Representative to the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, and Misbato Mokitai, Founding Director, Dream Girls, Republic of South Africa. So with that, I'm going to ask my friend Flori if she will begin the discussion, and then I'll be getting back with you on the exchange of the panel.
Well, thank you so much for inviting me to participate in this summit on economic equity and women of the diaspora. It's truly a pleasure to be here with my esteemed colleagues, especially the Honorable Constance Berry Newman, Dr. Jabril Diallo, and all of the really incredible women who have spoken thus far and are on this panel and others to come. I'm Flori Lazier, President and CEO of the Corporate Council on Africa, the leading U.S. business association focused solely on connecting business interests in Africa and the U.S. In the U.S., women and minority-owned and diaspora-owned businesses are a critical part of the economy, but let me focus more of my opening points on the women in Africa. They play an enormous role in Africa's economic growth and development. Women are more economically active in Africa as farmers, workers, and entrepreneurs than anywhere else in the world. In fact, Sub-Saharan Africa is the only region in the world where there are more women entrepreneurs than men. However, they are predominantly in the informal sector, an estimated 74% across Africa. And if they do own a formal business, it is smaller and employs fewer than male-owned companies. Women are often in more vulnerable employment and earn less than men. For example, in Ghana, almost 30% of men are in salaried jobs, but only 14% of women. The 2019 Global Gender Gap Report developed by the World Economic Forum, while acknowledging that Sub-Saharan Africa has made significant improvements, notes that it will take Sub-Saharan Africa another century, according to them, to truly close that gap. Now, what are some of the factors limiting women? First is the continued conflict across the continent. The Global Peace Index 2019 indicates that peace has deteriorated in 27 countries on the continent. Africa is home to half of all the active conflicts worldwide and hosts 7 out of 14 UN peacekeeping missions. Women are far more likely to be displaced due to conflict. Some estimate that over 50% of African women are displaced at some point. And then there are obstacles to obtaining financing. Small business loans usually require collateral. However, unequal land rights in many African countries restrict women's ability to own land. And without capital and collateral, women generally have less access to credit than men. Women need to have more access to financing, as well as support for training and capacity building. And then access to higher education is another issue. Although access to primary education has improved across the continent, families may choose to educate boys more so than girls. In general, cultural expectations across Africa still have women as the primary homemakers and childcare providers. This can require them to take less formal or part-time jobs closer to home. And early marriage also negatively impacts women. Lastly, COVID-19 has also disproportionately impacted women in Africa and across the globe. As I noted, in Africa, women are primarily engaged in the informal sector as market vendors, small farmers, cross-border traders, or domestic help. They are also overrepresented in the service, tourism, and hospitality industries, sectors that have been strongly impacted and negatively impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic and the restrictions that it brought up with it. Multiple assessments by the UN and other organizations indicate that violence against women escalated during the last year. And as a result, many of the women who are already in difficult positions are in even worsening positions in this past year and during this pandemic period. There are ongoing efforts in much of Africa to address the gender issues, though. Given that women are already a major force in the economy, If they are given better access to financing, better support for training and capacity building, the positive effect that would have on the economy of Africa would be enormous. An old proverb says that no bird can fly with one wing. To quote UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, only through the equal participation of women can we benefit from the intelligence, experience, and insights of all humanity. I'd like to stop there, and I look forward to hearing from the other women on the panel and hopefully to having an engaging discussion as well. Thank you so much again for this opportunity and honor to be a part of the summit.
Hello, Ms. Bentov.
Olá. Posso falar? Olá?
Sí,
yes,
we can hear you.
We can hear you.
Ok. Primeiramente, gostaria de agradecer pela honra deste convite de estar na segunda cúpula mundial da diáspora africana, de trazer uma realidade difícil que as pessoas estão podendo ver pelo mundo do que acontece no nosso país nesse momento, no Brasil, né? Acho que mulheres e mulheres negras e indígenas haviam criado estrutura, redes de proteção, direitos, organismos dentro do Estado para cuidar das suas questões de educação, de saúde, e nós tivemos nos últimos 5 anos uma destruição destes direitos, e isto fez impactar mais ainda a pandemia sobre as mulheres em geral, em particular as mulheres negras. A população negra é 54% da população do Brasil, ou seja, a maioria, mas entre negros e pobres da periferia, a Covid matou mais de 10 vezes mais pessoas negras do que pessoas brancas. Então, nós temos tido uma dificuldade muito grande, a violência aumentou contra as mulheres negras, mas o movimento de mulheres negras no Brasil é muito poderoso. Então, tem pressionado crescentemente as instituições. Nós temos visto iniciativas muito interessantes no campo do empreendedorismo, no campo das artes, no campo principalmente da tecnologia, mulheres criando organismos para lidar com esse momento que nós estamos vivendo, mas elas ainda fazem parte da população que mais perdeu o emprego, que mais foi afetada pela pandemia, porque elas são a maioria dos profissionais que estavam na frente na área da saúde, lidando com a Covid, e que tinham que manter a cidade funcionando, né? Que tinham que estar fazendo serviços básicos da cidade. Então, o impacto sobre elas é maior, mas as iniciativas neste campo, que foram interrompidas nos últimos 5, 6 anos, no campo dos direitos humanos, vem sofrendo grande pressão, né, das mulheres negras. Nós temos um enfrentamento particular, que nós mulheres negras perdemos um menino negro a cada 23 minutos no país. Por isso, nós falamos que é um genocídio da população negra no Brasil. E no último ano, nunca perdemos tantas meninas negras como na semana passada, 2 meninas de 4 e 7 anos brincando na porta da casa, e a polícia parou, matou as 2 meninas e se foi. Então, nós estamos vivendo um momento particularmente delicado no campo da violência. O Brasil inteiro, o mundo inteiro está vendo o que está acontecendo no Brasil. Então, se tivesse que dizer o que é que precisamos fazer, fortalecer o movimento de mulheres negras é um ponto importante, mas penso que fortalecer o debate, o tema dos nossos parceiros aqui, junto a investidores, junto a empresários, para que se possa ampliar a possibilidade de mulheres trabalharem dentro das empresas, terem oportunidade de trabalho, oportunidade de promoção, oportunidade de que suas organizações possam prestar serviços para grandes corporações. Isso pode ajudar muito a mudar nessa condição econômica das mulheres negras. E é muito importante que a gente traga isso como mulheres negras, né? Não é a questão de gênero apenas. Nós temos um problema de mulheres negras no Brasil. O racismo afeta diferente este segmento. E finalizo parabenizando a campanha Cartão Vermelho. Num país como o Brasil, país do futebol, há muita chance dessa campanha arrebatar as pessoas em prol da equidade racial e de gênero. Obrigada.
Yes, so we do have two other speakers. Dinya Gale.
Good evening, good morning, good day to everyone. I hope you can see me and hear me.
Yes.
Okay, great. Excellencies, dear guests and audience watching us online, I speak to you today from the land of the origins, the Federal Republic of Ethiopia. And it's truly a pleasure for me to be part of this panel to discuss economic inequity in the world, in today's world. This topic is not only a strategic pillar of UNFPA interventions worldwide, but is also close to my heart. As we mark the International Day of Women and Girls in Science today, long-standing biases and gender stereotypes are still steering girls and women away from science-related fields, curtailing their meaningful participation in society. Women and girls faces various economic inequalities, starting with the lack of access to education, poverty, skills development, and employment, making them prone to gender-based violence and harmful practices. I remember when I started my career, I was at that disadvantage point. Not only was I a Black girl in a region and a country, Costa Rica, where I was labeled as part of a minority group, but I was also a woman. God help me. But I didn't let this get to me. I was blessed to have a supportive entourage. Nevertheless, I still had to explain and justify my existence to others, simple by the color of my skin. Now, thinking about how girls do not have, how about the girls that do not have a support system and do not have access to education, reproductive health, education and services, nor employment opportunities. Think about how this undermines their ability to make autonomous choices about their body and future, thereby perpetuating the cycle of poverty for families and communities. Ladies and gentlemen, gender equality demands that the empowerment of women, demands that we identify and redress power imbalances to give women more autonomy to manage their own life. When women are empowered, and we heard this from previous speakers, whole families benefits, and these benefits often have a ripple effect on future generations. Women's equal participation and leadership in political and public life, which are far off our international agreed upon targets in the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action, and are essential to achieving sustainable development goals by 2030. and you will agree with me that you have seen progress in the world on this. You just saw the Honorable Minister Abdullah from Ethiopia, a young woman who is leading the agenda on women and girls in this country. This is the decade of action. This is our opportunity to achieve the UN Sustainable Development Goals and build the future we want for our girls and women. For UNFPA, this means looking at a future of equality, a future where all women have access to reproductive health services, including family planning, a future where there is no gender-based violence, and they have access to equal opportunities. And while progress have been made towards reaching this world we envision, the COVID-19 pandemic is threatening the gains we have made in this regard. A study of UNFPA and partners show that the pandemic could result in 13 million more child marriages and 2 million more cases of genital female mutilation between now and 2030. We cannot afford for this to happen. That's why UNFPA is working with its partners to dismantle the barriers standing between women and girls and their rights and choices. If we want to achieve equal world, all women and girls must be empowered to realize their sexual and reproductive health and rights. Before I conclude, allow me to thank the African Renaissance Diaspora Network for giving me the opportunity to share my thoughts with you, to invite you to join hands to eliminate the remaining obstacles that stand in the way of women's voices, choices, consent, and equality. It is high time to deliver on our commitments to accelerate the actions to realize the International Conference on Population and Development Promise of Action and the SDG bold promises to women and girls, even as we adapt to the new realities of COVID-19. And it is my hope that we will do so with the hastiness and conviction to ensure that other Black, Indigenous, and mulattoes little girls from the Latin America diaspora, like I am, will no longer need to explain and justify themselves by the color of their skin. Thank you very much.
Yes, so we have one more speaker from this panel, Ms. Mokiti.
Good evening, and evening to everyone. I'm really honored to be part of this panel and summit. I am Mabatu Mukiti, a young mathematician turned impact entrepreneur from South Africa. As a young girl growing up in Soweto, South Africa, I've always loved numbers and mathematics, but I didn't know any women, let alone women of color, who were mathematicians. So I decided that I would be that example. I'm an example of how education can empower someone and change the history of their family. My grandfather grew up in a village in South Africa and took a risk to move to the city of Johannesburg, where he and my grandmother, who never attended school, raised and educated 8 children, my father being the oldest. It was through that decision to educate his children that my grandfather broke the cycle of poverty in his family. I went on to study for my mathematics degree, and in university, I was one of very few women, let alone women of color, studying mathematics. I had comments from male classmates who would comment on what I was studying and whether I would finish. Women are often boxed. We expected not to be beautiful and smart, strong and sensitive, intuitive and courageous, but we are women and we can be all that. This led to me and my friends starting Dream Girls Academy 10 years later, because we wanted to give other young girls and women the gift of education in order for them to be able to be empowered and gain economic freedom. In turn, then be able to educate their siblings and family members, in this way replicating my grandfather's story and breaking the cycle of poverty in their families. To date, Dream Girls Academy has educated and mentored 6,000 young women and girls in South Africa and enabled them to reach for their dreams and be empowered. These young girls have gone on to acquire their further education, get employment, and educate their siblings. Not only that, they've come back to our organization to give back and empower other girls because they see the value of investing in women. I started my first business at the age of 18, and 18 years later, I'm proud to have opened up opportunities for children of color with a focus on young girls to study in the STEM industry. Women scientists have a critical role to play in Africa's development, including pushing the envelope on gender equality, one of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Recent data from UNESCO indicates that only 28% of researchers employed in research and development globally are women. On this International Day of Women and Girls in Science, my mission still remains the same as it was 18 years ago, to empower African women to pursue careers in STEM and to create new frontiers in both academia and business. Africa, our time is now.
Outstanding. Hello? Hello? Those were outstanding presentations. And we now have, I'm going to say 20 minutes. The director may send me a note to, to complain, but I want to dig deeper in a number of things that were said, and also weave into the question that I'm going to ask some comments that have come from the public. And the question I'm going to ask is not a popular one, but I think we need to put it out there. And it is this: to what extent do you on the panel believe that there's a lack of economic equity for cultural reasons, and we as women are not doing enough to address the underlying problem? I don't know who I wanted to turn to first, but anyone on the panel, try to help debunk the conclusion that people have or often express, which it is, we're part of the problem because we're refusing to take math and science, and we're refusing to push ourselves forward as women. Want to help me with this, Flori?
Well, thank you, Connie. I guess it's convenient to blame the victims, but I would just say that there are a range of things that happen from within families in terms of how they raise girls, to the experiences that girls have in school. They show that girls who are put in classes where it's all girls and no boys apparently will perform better and higher and push themselves farther than when they are sitting in rooms that they share with boys. I don't know all the reasons for that, but we know it's true. And then, fast forward, young women may go off to schools. They may not often have women who are their professors. I think it helps when you see a woman in front of you, or a woman of color in front of you, teaching a subject that you're taking up. In my case, it was economics. I didn't see any women or people of color, woman or man, in front of me. And then all the way to, I have been in meetings where I think all the women have experienced this. A woman makes a point, it's an excellent point. The men don't respond to it. A man 10 minutes later says basically the same thing that the woman said, and all of a sudden, all the men are resonating. Oh my gosh, what a great point so-and-so, Bill, John, Joe has made. So we see that, and I would just say that we have to take a multi-dimensional approach to addressing this. We have to do things that start with how girls are raised in families, how they're valued, all the way to the types of education they get and who educates them and the circumstances. Is it all with girls? If it's with boys, how do we get girls to feel like they can step in and be strong, and somehow still be a cute little girl? That seems to be, I guess, some of the issue, their self-identification. On science and technology, I think we have to do more to actively pull girls into STEM and programs that train them to have jobs in STEM. And then last but not least, we need to hold companies accountable for the way that they engage women. And I just want to end on this point. Study after study has shown now that companies that have more women on their board actually are more profitable. Studies that show that they have more diversity in general on their board are more profitable. And we need to now take that information as a bottom line indicator and not say, employ women and put them on your boards and make them your CEOs because you want to be nice and kind and a supporter of women, but you're doing it because it's actually in your best interest to do it. And I'll end there.
Thank you. I noticed both Ms. Makita and Ms. Gale's heads going up and down when you raised the point that and it's something that also has always bothered me. I've come up with something brilliant, or at least I thought it was brilliant, and some guy says it later and gets all kinds of kudos. But I want to explore just a little bit more why women, and Ms. Makita, I think you're best to answer this. Why are women and girls avoiding the opportunity to go into science, or because that does keep us out of sectors that provide economic security? And anyone answering that, but to the extent to which you can talk about what happened in Brazil too.
Eu gostaria de comentar, eu entendo que tem uma história que leva a isso. Nós aprendemos que aquele lugar de tomada de decisão ou da ciência não era um lugar onde mulheres, e mulheres negras, no caso do Brasil, deveriam estar. Então, é um processo. E esse aprendizado não é só das famílias, é nas escolas, é na mídia, que mostra que este é um lugar masculino e branco, no caso do Brasil. Então, eu queria comentar que tem um processo que leva a esta situação. E aí queria finalizar dizendo que nós tivemos um aumento de parlamentares negras recente este ano no Brasil, nas últimas eleições. E elas estão, 3 delas, este ano de 2021, sofreram ameaças de violência e uma sofreu violência efetiva porque ela traz uma outra voz. Ela diz que a nossa sociedade tem que seguir para um outro caminho, diferente do que está hoje, que é um caminho de violência. Então, esta mulher, ela é ameaçada. Então, quando a gente muda de lugar num país onde mulheres e mulheres negras não estavam em lugar de poder, não estavam na ciência, tem uma reação. E sim, nós temos que ler isso que está acontecendo e caminhar, mas temos que pensar que a reação social é sempre muito forte, a voz crescente das mulheres em lugares onde elas nunca estavam antes.
Yeah. So thank you so much for the comment. Ms. Gale, it would be helpful for you to talk a bit about the extent to which women are in policy positions, or to what extent are women really not actually making national or local policies, and therefore, no matter how educated they are, they're still having to follow the policies designed by men.
You know, I come from a place of optimism, and I want to say that, you know, speaking generally, I think women are more committed to advancing women's interests and achieving a more equal distribution of societal resources, and to push in women-centered policies, especially in the area where I work, which is the area of sexual and reproductive health and protection rights. They're more likely to speak, they're more likely to advocate. Look at the platform today. Do you see how many of us are sitting on this summit today? And they're more likely to act on behalf of women and children compared to men. So the reason is that they're better equipped to represent the interests of women because they at least to some extent share the same experiences, challenges, and needs. So as the world seeks to build back better, we must ensure that women are involved in the decision and policy-making process to influence these girls' center policy and guarantee that they have access to, you know, to education, to health, to tools and services. And the best example that I can give you is what you heard today from the Honorable Minister of Women from Ethiopia. Let me give you an example. Here in Ethiopia, they have large-scale industrial parks, and there was a realization that they didn't have the adequate reproductive health services and gender prevention services in these parks, and the women were working all day, so they could not go out and access these services. Well, the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Women, led by Honorable Abdullah, pushed a program with support from UNHCR services within these industrial parks. And you will agree with me that it's not easy to convince money-making industry of the importance of investing in health and in GVV protection and the impact that can have on their production and also on their revenues. But they did it. They did it because of the leadership that you see in this country, in two ministries that are led by two powerful and women with conviction. You heard today from Honorable Abdullah on that. So I think it's possible, and we are at the right table, and we're right there with the right policies at this moment. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Mokita, you founded an academy. Why didn't you just go ahead and work with one that was already out there? Why did you think it was necessary to develop your own institution?
I think for me, really, because it was very close and personal to me, right? Having graduated from university and coming back to the township that I grew up in, I really realized that a lot of the girls that I grew up with were in the same place, hadn't been educated, weren't working. And so for me, the main factor was, how can I ensure that they are economically empowered? And it all starts with education, because when you educate someone, they get greater opportunities for occupation. And when they get greater opportunities for occupation, they then get a greater income. And in that way, you're enabling them economically. And so for me, it was very important for me to go back to a place where I grew up in and give back in that place, because I think life really as a whole is all about serving. And we're better to serve than where you're from.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I wonder to what extent these corporations and governments and institutions now that are saying they're working on diversity and including women, and to what extent is it words and to what extent is it action, and what keeps them from moving from words to action? You know, I've been in many of these sessions where they're quote unquote training for diversity. And I find that people are talking past each other, that they're not really getting at the heart of the problem. But if you have examples of where they actually have done that, it'd be useful to share that and to share, you know, whether it's in Brazil or South Africa or wherever, share what is working in terms of moving from words to action.
If I may go,
Sure.
Honorable Connie. I think for me, what we've noticed, especially in South Africa, is that a lot of the policies and a lot of the regulations are getting they're getting brought up in the boardroom and not implemented on the ground, right? So the policies are there, they're sitting, they're collecting dust, but they're not being implemented on the ground. And one thing that's really happened in the past few years is a BEE, which is a Black Transformative Law that's come into South Africa, which really gives great opportunities to women, but also in particular women of color, but women of color who really deserve it. Because in the beginning, people were given opportunities because they were women or because they were women of color. And that also tainted the image of women doing great work in that particular sector. And so now more and more, the government is encouraging women of color to get into business, to really tender for opportunities in business so that they can then start transforming the industry and start then bringing in more women to work in their businesses.
Thank you. Now I'd like to go to some of the questions and comments that have come in from the people who are viewing the program. And the first one, Flory, is a question I want to ask you, but I want to ask others the same question. And it has to do with the extent to which systems are really not making loans available to women's businesses. And we all know that without the money, it's very hard, almost impossible. I mean, one of the good things about the presentation from C.D. Glenn is that's one of their initiatives, but they can't be everywhere. So to what extent the money question gets resolved in a way that it's real? And then I want to ask others the same question. For example, what is actually happening in Brazil, Ms. Pinto? But first, Flory.
Thank you, Connie. I think on the credit question, I think that there are sort of different aspects to it. If you look at Africa as a whole, access to credit is tough. We hear from small businesses, members of CCA who are on the ground in Africa. It's hard to get access to credit when your enterprise is still small. Companies that are large will tell us that they have the resources, but they don't have enough quote unquote bankable projects. And so they're looking at it and going, we've got the money, but we're not finding people, enterprises, projects to invest in. So again, I think it depends on the lens that you're looking through, but I think in general, small businesses, whether in Africa, in the US, Brazil, Jamaica, or anywhere else, really have this issue of access to capital. I would just say that alternative platforms and avenues of financing are important, and there are lots and lots of examples of microfinancing and so forth that are out there. The thing that I always love to hear about is the fact that in situations where say it's a microfinancing run by women, they put in small amounts of money and support each other. The repayment track record is enormously high. Women who borrow in that capacity, like 90-something% of them pay back. And so I think that when you're at that level and, it's microfinancing you need, then, to have the tools that are appropriate for you there. But as you move up as an entity and a business, we have to also work on what are the ways to get financing for those who need $5,000 as opposed to, $50,000 or $500,000 or $5 million. And I think that's the problem that we have, that we don't have institutions. The banks, they don't do well. They'll tell you that it costs them too much money to deal with loans that are, below a certain level. So if it's too small, they're like, that costs us too much. We're not interested in that. So We just have to find what are the appropriate tools for access to financing at the various levels that companies come in, all the way from the micro entities to SMEs, on up to those that need larger sums of money. But we've got to find better ways to do it.
We have another 10 minutes. I wanted to ask Ms. Bento about Brazil and the extent to which borrowing is a possibility. Borrowing money to start a business is a real possibility for women. And then I want to spend a small part of the time following up on a question that was raised by someone who is watching, a participant, that wants to kind of understand how realistic are we unless we address the issue of violence against women, and what is the link between the level of violence and the inability of women to have economic equity. So the three of you be thinking about that, okay? But in the meantime, Ms. Bento, if you would just talk about the possibility of loans in for women entrepreneurs.
Sim, posso falar. Há inúmeras iniciativas hoje de coletivos de mulheres negras ou de grupos que fazem exatamente como a companheira que me antecedeu falou, que trocam entre si, que fazem o dinheiro circular entre estes coletivos, atuando de maneira mais cooperativa do que competitiva, no que a gente chama de economia criativa. E isso tem em diferentes lugares do país hoje, mas você tem também uma estrutura bancária que não foi feita, não foi aberta para mulheres e para mulheres negras em particular, que ela precisa ser discutida. Então, eu creio que as duas coisas precisam funcionar juntos. Manter uma pressão sobre as instituições que não conseguem funcionar da mesma maneira para mulheres e para mulheres negras, considerando sua situação, e pensar que essas instituições podem pensar outras perspectivas, e, ao mesmo tempo, entre os coletivos negros, poder atuar de maneira cooperativamente e numa iniciativa que possibilite o avanço. Nós temos, inclusive, iniciativas envolvendo grandes bancos, são pequenas, deveriam aumentar, mas isso está acontecendo. E eu diria quão realista estamos quando falamos de violência. Dados oficiais do governo dizem que morre um jovem negro a cada 23 minutos assassinados no Brasil. Dados do Ministério da Saúde mostram que a violência cresceu contra mulheres negras no mesmo período que ela ainda acontece com mulheres brancas, mas diminuiu, e ela cresceu. Nós temos 3 vezes mais morte de mulheres, de mortalidade de mulheres negras relacionadas ao parto. Então, a gente tem muita coisa a pensar. As mulheres criaram sistemas que foram derrubados nos últimos 6 anos, né, por conta de um novo momento político que o país está vivendo.
Thank you. Let's talk a little bit about violence and the relationship of that to economic equity. And then I have a closeout question that came in from one of the people viewing the program. But are we being realistic if we don't address the issue of violence, or is that a separate set of problems that need to be solved but don't have any impact on the economic level of women? I'm a teacher, so I just gonna call on somebody. Okay, is Gail?
Okay, I actually unmuted before because I was going to try to come in.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, you know, I think it's the simple answer is absolutely not. Huh? We cannot ignore the impact that violence against women has on their economic well-being. Listen, we know that across the globe, women strive daily to balance their dual roles as workers in the labor market and also primary caretakers of their children. And therefore, we know that if a woman is economically empowered and she has the ability to protect herself, protect her family, protect herself from violence, to make informed decisions and choices about her body and her livelihood, the ripple effect is immense. It really makes a difference in her life, and it makes a difference in the life of her family. And so I am a believer, and I've seen it in many countries where I have worked, primarily here in the African continent, that when you have the policies, the services, and the investment in education, in health, in opportunities for women, for them to be able to exercise these other economic dimension of her life, things will change. Huh? So I think that we need to continue to push in the direction of holding government accountable, that they will put these policies and these programs in place. We need to empower the women to demand and access those services, and we need to make sure that they are employed and have the resources to take care of themselves and their families. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let me pose the closing question for you to think about. Someone sent in and said, Black women in the global diaspora are more likely to be entrepreneurs. And I think, Flora, you mentioned that, and I think all of you know that women in all out through the world, particularly developing world, are the entrepreneurs. But the systems are not taking that into consideration in terms of what they are making available for women. And this person mentioned, you know, the new free trade agreement in Africa still is not designed, and Ms. Makiti, you probably can help us with this, that really is not designed in any special way to address women. The question is, how can women really influence policies of their countries or their regions or their local areas to change? And to what extent is it requiring women to be more organized? To what extent do we have to take the position that individuals are not going to get the change, that they're going to be combined with others? And does it have to be other women's organizations, or can it be organizations that are women and men, but are interested in developing the economy? So as your closeout, you can talk about any other subject you want to on the closeout, but please add at least a sentence in response to this question that has come in from the audience. And I don't know who wants to start.
I'll go.
Kixie? Okay, great.
So just in response to the question that was posed, I think really when it comes to women economic issues, it starts with education. Firstly, it really does start with educating both men and women that everyone deserves equal opportunities, right? And when it comes to business, women going into business and getting funding, which is something that was touched on earlier, a lot of times in order for women to get any sort of funding, they need to have a credit score, which means that they have to have had some sort of assets or owned a property or something in the past. But Africa, women didn't have those opportunities, especially women of color. And so women of color then do not have a credit record, which means that they can't access funding because banks are asking them for credit records, which they do not own, right? So it starts with just how banks are then, what are they asking from women in order for them to access funding? they can't ask for things like documentation or a record on your credit performance, because women don't have that kind of stuff. But in essence, they should really be going down on the ground and seeing how women are really doing work on the ground. As we are designed as women, we are problem solvers by nature. And so we will thrive in business, because business is about solving problems. And so really, I think more than anything else, when it comes to business and when it comes to opening up opportunities for women, it's really about cutting some barriers for women, so that we really allow women to be able to access opportunities without imposing a lot of documentation requirements or credit requirements on them.
Thank you. Yes, next person.
Eu concordo com a companheira. Coletivos de mulheres, coletivos de homens, de brancos, coletivos de grandes empreendedores precisam discutir as regras das instituições. Mas isso já vem ocorrendo. No Brasil, a gente tem boas experiências por dentro das instituições em que se discute quanto as regras podem ser excludentes para mulheres, para negras, e quanto elas precisam mudar. Então, nós temos tido experiências de fazer censos, de mudar programas, processos, de fazer debates sobre como as regras podem ser discriminadoras, mesmo que elas não tivessem sido pensadas para isso. Mas é preciso mudar a estrutura das instituições. Então, a normativa, porque muitas vezes, como disse a companheira que me antecedeu, essas regras impedem uma concorrência normal, justa para mulheres, e principalmente para mulheres negras e indígenas.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Flori?
So I was thinking about sort of the two different things that I think are important if you're going to have women that are fully empowered, whether personally or in terms of business. The first, on the one hand, I think financial literacy and education really needs to start at home and early on, with people who, parents and grandparents. I'm a grandmother of 5, teaching their children and grandchildren about saving, about the importance of having a good credit score. To be frank, my parents were fabulous, but they didn't really teach myself and my siblings about these kinds of things. And it took a long time, to catch up and start, I don't know that I've ever caught up, but to actually have that kind of empowerment in terms of managing the resources that do come in. Because I heard someone say that a lot of people don't have money issues, they have money management issues. On the other hand, that's sort of on the personal side. On the institutional side, I just want to say that there are things that people can do. I was impressed. I'm reading more about it, so I don't know all the details, but I understand that the African Union has now taken the position that 50% of the management positions in the AU have to be women. So if you have a man from East Africa, in one of the parts of the secretariat, say handling education, then you have to have a woman who maybe is from Southern Africa. And they just put this into place that, there must be this kind of parity. And the reason I'm raising this is that there are battles and things that people can do on a personal level, empowering ourselves and those we know and love. But then there are institutional things that can be put in place. So for example, corporations can say that 50% of the women on the board have to be women. 50% of the people on the board have to be women. Or, people don't like, they don't like when you put in those kind of goals, and require them. But if people voluntarily say, this is what we want to do, and institutionalize having women and people of color play the kind of roles that we are fully capable of playing, then in addition to, you know, being pushed by our mothers and fathers and sisters and, you know, grandmas on the personal side that encourage us to be all we can be, we also now have the institutional support that we need, because we know so-and-so is not going to get a promotion if he doesn't bring in more women. He's not going to be able to get a bonus this year because he didn't bring in enough people of color and adhere to diversity goals that were set for him. And so I think it's got to be both. That we got to push that thing from both sides. That's what I'd like to call.
Thank you. Ms. Gail?
We can't hear you.
We can't hear you.
No, I'm here. I want to say that I absolutely agree with the last speaker. If we want to see more of those banking policies change, then we need to be the bank CEOs.
Yeah.
If we want to see those national policies, if we want to see more women-centered national policies, then we need to sit in Parliament and shape those policies. If we want to see international organizations leading development and humanitarian work with the gender-sensitive approach, then we need to have more women leading some of these international organizations. The time is now to make that happen. And by this platform, it just reaffirmed that we're on the right direction. So watch out.
That's an excellent way for us to end our panel.
Oh, wonderful.
And just thank you so very much. I just want to say one thing, Gordon, before you cut me off, that for the people in the audience whose questions we did not answer, we'll try to pull something together and attach it in some way to the final report so that you will not have been ignored. So thank this wonderful panel. And now I turn it over to you, Gordon.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, a very stimulating, discussion or panel discussion we just had, and statements from the panelists. Thank you for that, Connie. Now we've just been talking about women and girls and why girls are not so much into science and mathematics, etc. Now I have a video that we want to show you, and this is a video that's also produced by UN Women, and it's about girls in science. Please show this now.
Yes, the world needs science and science needs women. Thank you very much for this wonderful video. Now we will move to the panel on path to economic equity. Each panel member has opening remarks, and then we will move into a panel discussion. The order of the panel member will be as follows, and I am delighted to introduce Honorable Mabel Gisela Torres, Minister of Science, Technology, Innovation of Republic of Colombia. Mrs. Samhar Arya, Head, Diaspora Public Policy, Facebook. And Dr. Leslie Baskerville, President and CEO, National Association for Equal Opportunity in Higher Education, United States of America. And Mrs. Caroline Akarisima, founder Apps for Girls, United Republic of Tanzania.
Un saludo a todas, es un honor estar aquí con ustedes en este panel tan importante, sobre todo en una región como Colombia, en donde la población negra afrocolombiana tiene una profunda connotación en la construcción histórica del país. Un saludo muy especial a la moderadora Mary Jane, a mis compañeras de paneles, la señora Semar Aria, Caroline Akarisima y Regina Honu. Como primera ministra de Ciencia, Tecnología e Innovación y en el primer ministerio que fue creado justo hace un año, tengo este gran honor de representar a toda una comunidad, pero sobre todo de construir un referente que sea muy importante para nuestras mujeres negras de todo el mundo, al ser yo una mujer de región, una mujer de una familia de ingresos bajos, de 8 hermanos, en donde todos fuimos a la universidad. Así que tengo una gran responsabilidad, y no solamente es la responsabilidad de construir un ministerio, sino de también construir referentes desde el espíritu, en esta conexión que nos permite de alguna manera expandir la voz de muchas y generar ese reflejo en donde nuestras mujeres tengan la posibilidad de verse, de encontrarse y de reconocer que hay un poder inmenso que está dentro en nuestros corazones, en nuestro espíritu, para transformar estas realidades que no nos gustan. Y estando justo en este papel desde el Estado, viniendo de la academia y viniendo un trabajo comunitario durante muchos años, creo que es una gran oportunidad para poder encontrar en las políticas públicas de Estado oportunidades para nuestras mujeres y sobre todo las que quieren ser científicas como yo.
Good afternoon and good evening. It is an honor to be here. My name is Semhar Araya, and I am the head of Facebook, Africa, Middle East, and Turkey Diaspora Public Policy. I want to begin by thanking the African Renaissance and Diaspora Network for inviting us to be a part of this critical discussion as we celebrate, acknowledge, and explore the importance of women and girls in science. And for Facebook, this is not only an issue because of the different ways that women make impact around the world and in science-related industries, but also the importance of companies and institutions like ours to not only invest in women, but think about the challenges that so many women face in the diaspora, in their countries, in their homelands, as either women of African descent, of underrepresented communities, of marginalized segments of society. So for Facebook, I bet a lot of you are wondering why we deal with diaspora policy. Well, in a nutshell, we do, Facebook is a lifeline and a platform for nearly 3 billion people around the world. We know that women are vital in keeping communities connected. And for those of us who identify as being a member of the diaspora, we know that Facebook becomes that lifeline to not only stay connected to your homelands and your communities, but to also amplify voices, preserve heritage and culture, drive economic, social, and civic change, and really amplify your voice in whatever way you see fit that makes a positive contribution and impact around the world. But historically, Facebook has worked around the world and in Africa, Middle East, and Turkey for many years. We began this work with Africa over 6 years ago and really focused on the ways in which Facebook's platform, including Instagram and WhatsApp, helps democratize the digital landscape, brings connectivity and internet access to underserved communities, and with the advent of mobile phones, really finding access to the entire world in the palm of people's hands. And so what we saw and witnessed was, and still is, a huge demand for our services on the continent. And when you look at the WHO, we see a very huge demand from young people, from women, and underserved and marginalized voices. So Facebook works with governments around the world, as well as the non-governmental stakeholders, including media, nonprofit organizations, small and medium businesses, entrepreneurs, youth advocates, civil society. And we realized over time that for regions like Africa and the Middle East and Turkey, the diasporas are a critical driver to not only policy outcomes, but just the livelihoods of so many people on the ground. And we recognized that the diaspora cannot be treated as an add-on, and that it must be integrated into our strategy of serving the region as a whole. And so Facebook considers diasporas as critical stakeholders in addition to women. And so that's why this conversation is so important for us, because we also know the nexus of being a woman in the diaspora and a woman in the diaspora of African descent, which is incredibly powerful as far as we see it. But we also believe that there's a lot more that needs to be done to make sure that women have the tools, that girls have the tools, the access and the resources, and the know-how, quite frankly, to move through this industry as it relates to science and specifically for our world, tech. So before I get into a little bit of how Facebook does that and what we do to help amplify voice and build community and empower powerful women, I want to step away for a minute and really explore this issue of why women of the African diaspora matter in particular. For those of you that I've had the chance to work with, you know that for many years, the role of women in the African diaspora is a critical component of the work I've done and focused on, because we know that women are drivers of change, of systemic change, of cultural change, and also at the same time, they help women lead in preserving community and culture and helping be drivers for peace, as we heard in our previous panel. We also know that women are drivers of economic change. And yet so often women of the African diaspora are disproportionately underrepresented in these spaces, whether it's politics or science or business or take any industry. We have many challenges in access and representation. However, due to strides made through efforts of institutions and efforts led by the UN and governments and thought leaders and change makers around the world, we're starting to see improvements in girls' access to education and girls' access to jobs. Women who graduate with degrees are increasingly being considered for jobs, and I'm specifically referring to women in the global South. And yet in the diaspora, while we have women of the African diaspora who may have the access or the opportunity to have education, there's still many challenges in terms of the pipeline and in the retention. And we speak about this quite often in the United States, of the challenges facing Black women in the workplace and Black women in civic and public spaces. So understanding these invisible and visible ceilings and barriers, there is a specific focus we have in our diaspora policy, which works to address gender structures and amplifying and driving gender equity throughout our diaspora work. A feature of this is linked to the fact that when we have cultures and communities that have moved abroad or have expanded abroad, we know that there's oftentimes a shift in the power dynamics between women and in the cultural expectations and roles that they are traditionally expected to have in many of these cultures, whether you deem it a function of patriarchy or cultural heritage and preservation. We know that when women arrive in the diaspora, they are more likely to become economically empowered. They are more likely to be the breadwinners of the house. They are more likely to be employed in positions of influence and having educational opportunities that they didn't have before. And what this does is it actually empowers women to become more engaged on global issues and more engaged on social issues affecting their communities here and there. And that's what we do see in different examples throughout the region. At Facebook, we see organizers, women who are activists, organizing their communities and building campaigns and initiatives using our different resources, our groups pages, our groups feature, our pages feature, amplifying what they think is missing in many of their communities. But we also see challenges with driving and ensuring safety of voices on our platform. And so we actually have, we continue to double down and invest deeper in ways that we can protect voices, particularly marginalized and underrepresented voices, ensure that people understand how to use the platform, ensure that we are doing our part to make sure that these parameters or these policies are clear. It's a heavy, heavy lift, but it's one that our teams around the world are deeply dedicated to. And for the Africa, Middle East, and Turkey public policy teams, we have the relationships on the ground with entities, with stakeholders, many of whom on this conference examples, I'm sure we have organizations that we've had the chance to engage with, as well as governments that we work closely with in understanding the environment and the priorities for the country in advancing women and girls' access to science and technology and other spaces. I will end there as sort of our overview of why not only diasporas matter for Facebook, but why women of the African diaspora matter for Facebook. And as a woman of the African diaspora myself, it is an honor to share the floor with so many of you. And I really am grateful for the chance to connect and share and listen with everybody. Thank you so much.
Hello. Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, great. Thank you. Hi, I'm Leslie Baskerville. I'm President and CEO of the National Association for Equal Opportunity in Higher Education, the nation's membership and advocacy association of 105 historically Black colleges and universities and 80 predominantly Black institutions. I'd like to thank Honorable Constance Newman, the chair of Arden. I'd like to also thank Honorable Jabil Diallo. And I'd like to thank all of my colleagues and all of those who presented prior to me, either as a presenter or a performer. I've been so deeply enriched today by your thoughts and your recommendations, and I'm just humbled to be here with you. I'm delighted to be here in the decade of people of African ancestry. I'm also delighted to be here from the United States as a woman, African ancestry woman in this, the year of Black women in America. This is the year of Black women in America because we as mothers, daughters, sisters, partners, caregivers, breadwinners, cheerleaders, healers, menders, motivators, and soul savers rescued not only our communities from the clutches of white supremacists and others who would destroy American democracy, destroy our families, our communities, but we moved millions from the margins, millions from Main Street to the polls, and we put into the White House the first female, the first African ancestred female, the Honorable Kamala Harris, Vice President of the United States, and second in command in the free world. We are deeply humbled and honored to have an African ancestred woman at the helm of America. And Her presence in that position positions us better today as African ancestred women than last year when Nafio was privileged to participate in this convening. So too does the presence of another African ancestred woman, the Honorable Eddie Bernice Johnson, who's serving her 30th year in the United States Congress and is chairing the House Committee on Science, Space, and Technology. During her 3 decades of service in the Congress, Honorable Eddie Bernice Johnson, more than any other member of Congress, has positioned African ancestred women, others of color, and other women into the pipeline for science and technology. We owe her a deep debt of gratitude. And I also have to acknowledge Dr. Kismakia Corbett, a 34-year-old African ancestred woman who was blessed to be in the laboratories of the Moderna with the dream team, trying to come up with the vaccine for COVID. As she was there, she witnessed what was going into the vaccine, and she was there to make sure that whatever was going to go in our arms this time would not shorten our life, but would rather extend or enhance our lives if we did what we were required to do after we got the vaccine, namely to continue to mask and to continue to socially distance. And so I'm excited and delighted. I know that in this year, we will move the needle forward in terms of women, women of color, and closing the economic gap, closing the education gap, the health gap, the wealth gap, the sustainability, and the justice gaps. We're going to do that because of America's historically Black colleges and universities in large measure. 46% of African ancestry women in the sciences, technology, engineering, and mathematics have gotten their degrees from one of the 105 historically Black colleges and universities. So many others have gotten their degrees from one of the 5 historically Black college accredited medical schools, one of the accredited 31 HBCU nursing schools, one of the 57 HBCUs that are one of the other 57 medical programs and health and wellness programs being offered by America's historically Black colleges and universities, and or from one of the 1890s land grant institutions that are leading in preparing women and people of color and others so that we can have food security in communities that are traditionally underserved and underrepresented. And so today I'd like to suggest that because and with HBCUs and with this new administration, and I circle back quickly to note that our vice president is an alumna of an historically Black college. I would also like to note that the chair of the House Science Committee is an alumna of an historically Black college. And so the Biden-Harris administration has proposed a number of initiatives that I believe create an opening for NAFIO in partnership with Arden, and hopefully with many others who are present today or who are watching this today, we can work so that at the end of the year, so that this time when we convene next year, we can have some quantifiable results from moving where we are today to closer to where we need to be. The first project is a $70 billion Biden-Harris pledge to better position HBCUs and other institutions to lead in meeting national and global priorities, including the closing of the health gap and creating a much more diverse health and STEM pipeline. And so with that $70 billion that is planned for historically Black colleges and universities and others, we would like to work with you to devise a plan that we can do in partnership to prepare, to put in the pipeline more African ancestry girls and women and to move them through the pipeline. We'll be able to better do that by another program, which is a broadband initiative. In the coronavirus budget the last coronavirus budget here in the United States, there's established a minority office on broadband in the National Telecommunications Information Administration. And there's a $85 million funding appropriation for a pilot program that can position HBCUs with colleges and universities on the continent, elsewhere in the diaspora, so that we can exchange information. And while we're advancing the pipeline here in America, we're doing it around the world, exchanging information through a new broadband initiative. By the way, there is an African ancestored woman, Dr. Francine Al-Kaswani, who is over that initiative. And the third and final initiative I'd like to share with you for consideration of partnership will be one in the United States Department of Labor. The Biden-Harris administration is designating dollars in the Department of Labor for women to pursue STEM. In this initiative, they want women to get into the pipeline early. They want women in middle schools to be prepared for apprenticeships, to prepare for employment in STEM. And so in the Department of Labor, they will be allocating dollars to historically Black colleges and universities and other colleges and universities to identify schools and students in middle school and to work with them on a curriculum that will move them swiftly through the pipeline and into community colleges, and also make available paid apprenticeships, community colleges, where they will get certifications and to begin to ply their trade and make a good living, but most importantly, make a significant difference in the lives of those of us who are least advantaged. And so I offer you those for your consideration, Mr. President Diallo, and I also reaffirm NAFIO's pledge to participate in the Red Card campaign. A luta continua y victoria acerta. Thank you, my brothers and sisters.
Yes, we have to go back and meet again Honorable Mabel Gisela Torres, Minister of Science, Technology and Innovation, Republic of Colombia, because she has not finished her lecture. Madame la Ministre, it's your turn.
Bueno, muchas gracias de reactivar y renovar esta conversación. Bueno, quisiera contarles en estos pocos minutos un poco cuáles son las estrategias que nosotros como Ministerio de Ciencia, Tecnología e Innovación estamos implementando para lograr mejorar el acceso de las mujeres negras e indígenas en ciencias, tecnología e innovación, sobre todo porque hay un principio fundamental que es el de lograr no solamente que nuestras jóvenes entren a la universidad, sino también de romper ese estereotipo, esta narrativa y esta construcción que se ha creado en el que las mujeres nos encasillan y nos han puesto que somos buenas para algunas carreras y no para otras. Y hoy quiero recordar un poco una frase de una niña de hace 12 años, cuando yo trabajaba en mi laboratorio de investigación y me crearon, que se empezaron a construir referentes de mi quehacer científico porque habíamos muy pocas mujeres en este ámbito científico en el Pacífico colombiano, y al ir esta niña a mi laboratorio, ella me dijo, yo pensé que la ciencia era un tema de hombres blancos y ricos, o sea, 3 estereotipos muy fuertes, el de etnia, el de género y el de clase, que muchas veces son las limitantes y las barreras que no permiten que nuestras niñas se vean reflejadas y figuren en este ámbito de las carreras STEAM y ni las consideren como una carrera, como un proyecto de vida. Por lo tanto, una de las primeras acciones fue cambiar un poco este panorama de que la formación sea solamente de la formación, y fue crear un programa que contemplara 3 componentes específicos. Un componente que es el componente de la inspiración y el liderazgo. Nosotros no vamos a poder trascender si no empezamos a construir desde nuestra propia narrativa un entorno y un mundo para otras, porque tal vez cuando nosotros firmamos y podemos tener casi, podría decirlo, que este privilegio de ocupar cargos como este, por ejemplo, el de ser la primera ministra, sí, me transformo y tengo un cargo, pero ahí hay una responsabilidad muy grande, y es que nosotros realmente podamos visibilizar a otras a través de nosotros, y es darle ese campo y es abrir ese camino, y creo que esa es una gran responsabilidad que nos va a permitir además que nuestras acciones trasciendan. Entonces, este programa que denominamos Más Mujer, Más Ciencia, Más Equidad, que además es un programa en temas STEAM que jamás se había hecho en Colombia y es el primer programa de Latinoamérica, tiene 3 elementos fundamentales. Un elemento fundamental es el de crear conciencia para que a través de nuestras propias carreras profesionales nosotras podemos impulsar a otras y nos convirtamos en ese camino. Por lo tanto, aquí hay una etapa de formación que es formación en liderazgo. Hay un segundo elemento de este programa de Más Mujer, Más Ciencia, Más Equidad, que es el componente de entrenamiento. Un entrenamiento basado en desafíos en donde invitamos a nuestras niñas negras, indígenas, de bajos ingresos, víctimas del conflicto armado y en condiciones de discapacidad, a que reconozcan su entorno como una capacidad, como una oportunidad y como un potencial, no como una manera de salir huyendo del territorio. Por lo tanto, esta segunda fase de entrenamiento, que es basada en desafío, está orientada específicamente a que las niñas se puedan ir a universidades, a centros de desarrollos tecnológicos, a hacer entrenamiento de ciencia, tecnología e innovación, con un componente adicional, y es que normalmente no todas las mujeres científicas queremos trabajar en ciencias básicas y ir al laboratorio, sino que a través de la ciencia también se puede emprender, y es la posibilidad de generar esa conciencia de que podemos ser gerentes y podemos construir empresas a través del conocimiento, generar bienes y servicios. Y aquí hay un componente importante que es el de formación en sí y el acompañamiento de una segunda lengua. La segunda lengua, para muchas de nuestras niñas que viven en territorios en condiciones de vulnerabilidad y en condiciones marginalizadas, se convierten también en un obstáculo para salir. Por lo tanto, hay una formación de esta segunda lengua que les va a permitir también abrir su panorama. Y hay un tercer elemento y componente en este programa que estamos impulsando desde el Ministerio de Ciencia, Tecnología e Innovación, que es el de la empleabilidad. Empleabilidad porque también a las niñas, al ser de regiones y ser mujeres de condiciones étnicas minoritarias, entre comillas, mucho de lo que limita el acceso a la empleabilidad es el relacionamiento. Por lo tanto, estamos haciendo un trabajo con el sector productivo para que este primer empleo, después de que las niñas vengan de su entrenamiento, se les facilite a través de las empresas. Y esto tiene 3 principios básicos y fundamentales. Uno es generar confianza de sí misma, de lo que son capaces de hacer. Otro, segundo elemento, es el del empoderamiento. Y el tercer elemento es el de relacionamiento. Y el de relacionamiento porque una vez uno tiene un primer empleo donde puede ampliar su mundo, en donde puede hacer conexiones, un segundo empleo ya es mucho más fácil. Entonces, este es un programa que estamos implementando desde el Ministerio de Ciencia, Tecnología e Innovación, y que además queremos hacer la propuesta de que sea un programa para Iberoamérica y, ¿por qué no?, a todos los países de la diáspora y en África. Por el otro lado, tenemos un programa que lo que busca es el incentivo de las vocaciones científicas en los niños, en los jóvenes, que se llama Expresarte Conciencia, en donde hay una condición, y es que todos los equipos deben integrar por lo menos a una mujer para darles soluciones a desafíos territoriales, a desafíos organizacionales, sociales o empresariales. Y aquí hay una conversación muy importante, y es una conversación en la que el programa lo que busca es que estos jóvenes tengan mentores que les acompañen dentro de su proceso de formación. Muchas de nosotras vivieron la circunstancia de que aún cuando tenían el convencimiento de querer ser científicas, nuestros papás o las voces exteriores nos decían: no, usted no está hecha para eso, usted para qué va a estudiar esa carrera si cuesta mucha plata. o por el contrario, ¿para qué va a estudiar eso si usted a través de eso no va a ser rico? Entonces, este es un programa de acompañamiento de mentoría para prototipar, para que a través de la creatividad, de las habilidades y de metodologías de investigación, creación y de una manera práctica y con prototipos materializados, los jóvenes también puedan acercarse y las mujeres a las vocaciones científicas de una manera más creativa, de una manera más cercana. Hay dos principios básicos que nosotros aplicamos, que es el de la democratización y la regionalización del conocimiento. Es una nueva dimensión en un Ministerio de Ciencia, Tecnología e Innovación recién creado, y es por eso que nosotros también estamos trabajando en una estrategia en el que regiones con bajos índices de innovación, con brechas de inequidad muy grandes, en donde inclusive no hay universidades, construir una estrategia que se llama los Centros Regionales de Investigación, Innovación y Emprendimiento. Una estrategia que busca de alguna manera conectar generación de conocimiento con producción de bienes y servicios, pero también de apropiación. El conocimiento debe gestionarse y debe movilizarse, y las mujeres son un momento muy importante para poder movilizar este conocimiento. Quisiera cerrar entonces diciendo que el tema de enfoque diferencial y el tema de inclusión en las actividades de ciencia, tecnología e innovación requieren un gran compromiso del Estado, porque es también tener inversiones diferenciales, inversiones que nos permitan llegar cada vez más a poblaciones que han tenido menos acceso, como las mujeres negras e indígenas de este país, a temas como ciencia, tecnología e innovación, en regiones en donde el empobrecimiento y las condiciones de vulnerabilidad son tan trágicas que las niñas ya no tienen otra posibilidad que tener a un marido o tener hijos para ser mantenidas. Esa es una condición muy crítica en las regiones de Colombia y creo que en muchas regiones de Latinoamérica. Por lo tanto, nosotros también como mujeres necesitamos conciencia de que abrir el camino es lo más importante, ser mentora. Y es un mensaje que quiero mandar hoy. Yo creo que la mentoría para abrir esos caminos son muy importantes, porque si nosotros creamos redes, también estamos generando un empoderamiento a través de la unidad, a través de un diálogo que nos permite mandar un mensaje a nuestras niñas y a nuestras mujeres para que cada vez se enrolen en papeles gerenciales, en papeles de ciencia, tecnología e innovación, y seguir vocaciones que les permitan finalmente también entrar a un proceso de empoderamiento de otras mujeres.
Thank you very much. Thank you very, very much, Madame le Ministre. Now it's time to Now it's time to let Mrs. Caroline Akarisima to speak.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. It's a privilege really to be here on this platform, this amazing summit. My fellow panelists, previous speakers and participants and honorables available on this platform, and everyone listening in and watching. I'm so humbled and privileged to be here, and I bring you greetings from Tanzania. In Swahili, we say habari zenu, which means how are you, everyone? So thank you very much for having me. My name is Caroline Akarisima, and I'm originally from Uganda. Indeed, I'm a woman of diaspora. I'm based in Tanzania right now, and I'm a computer scientist. 7 years ago, when I was a lecturer at the university, and I quit my job to start Apps and Girls together with my husband. By then he was my boyfriend. I didn't have anything. We started straight in the living room with nothing, only just the skills. and it's a big risk that I took, I would say. So since 2013, Apps and Goals started, to date has grown to be a big organization operating in 2 countries. I'm really, really proud of that. And at Apps and Goals, we work with different girls and young women. We work with girls in secondary school, but in public schools for those who are from low-income earning communities. And also we work with girls who are school dropouts who aren't able to complete their education due to different challenges, financial challenges. Maybe they got pregnant and couldn't continue to school, or different other issues that happened. And we also support university graduates, female, who are in the field of IT, and support them with advanced skills to enable them to be competent and to get a competitive edge when they're getting employment or able to create other sources of income. So what we do at Apps and Goals is that we work with the young girls who are still scoring. We find them in school, we create coding clubs. So those girls are taught coding from basic to advanced programming skills throughout the year. It's part of the school calendar. So every day they have, every week they have a slot whereby they get those trainings. And the people who provide those trainings are the school teachers, the ICT school teachers whom we work with, whom we've trained and provided intense capacity building. They're able to deliver our curriculum to those young girls and young women. And after, when they are trained in coding, those young girls are also taken through a curriculum of problem solving, identifying problems in their communities and creating solutions for them. And that's where entrepreneurship comes in, but with the focus of tech entrepreneurship. So the girls use the skills that they have learned and develop tech-driven solutions, which they end up implementing in the community. Some are social, some are for profit, and at such a young age. So when we go to the part of out-of-school girls, we have a special curriculum for them, which prepares them for either formal employment, where they learn very advanced programming skills, for example, mobile application development, web design, graphics. They spend almost 6 months with us, and they are taken through the basics until they reach the advanced level. The main goal is for them to be able to acquire formal employment in different companies. And on top of that, we also take them through the tech entrepreneurship curriculums that are able to use the digital skills they've learned to create businesses, to create social enterprises that are changing the community, but also elevating their economic situation. We also run programs for graduates, whereby the ICT graduates is very competitive in my country, and you find most of the jobs are taken by guys. And because of the stereotypes that have been present in the community and the lack of role models and all that, we find the girls graduate from university when they are not competent enough, they are not courageous enough to join the workforce and competently excel. So we give them support and introduce them to the latest technologies that they were not able to access in their universities. And these skills have really made them so marketable, because it includes even certifications from Microsoft. So it's been really amazing working with these young women. And so far, Apps and Goals has worked with almost more than 11,000 girls and young women across the country. And we've had girls and young women who have actually not only benefited with the skills or created startups, but they've reused the revenues from their startups to help them continue to fund their education until university level. For example, I have a girl called Joka who dropped out at O-level at a secondary school level, but through a program, she's been able to create a startup, an e-commerce that sells groceries to different people online and performs deliveries. And right now she's using her revenues to support her family, but also to continue studying. She's currently enrolled in a diploma in ICT at Tenlab Innovation Academy. So Apps and Girls has brought very tremendous impact and to the girls and young women, and it's evident that when you empower a girl, you empower the whole community, because we've seen this happen. Currently, the team at Apps and Girls, 90% are alumni who have returned, who are very skilled and are able, and they're willing to give back and support other young women to grow. But also we've seen that the solutions that they work on, these girls, the biggest percentage are solutions which are affecting themselves. So it's like they're the best people to solve these global problems that are facing women. So giving them the power and the tools to do that, trust me, we are creating a better world for everyone. For example, there's a group of girls who are like the age of 16 and 15 and 18. They created sanitary pads vending machine, and is currently implemented in their school. And this is because they noticed that many girls can't afford sanitary pads, and so it's difficult for them to sometimes to go to school during menstruation. So they installed the vending machine in their school, so the girl is able to just use a simple coin, which is really affordable, to access one pad at a time while at school, and this keeps more girls in school. So you can see how investing in girls and young women is so powerful, and it has a ripple effect in our communities. During the COVID pandemic started, of course, we were struggling and trying to find ways on how we can continue supporting our beneficiaries. That's when we put together a group of alumni, and they developed an e-learning platform and a mentorship and incubation platform, which was meant to continue supporting your girls and young women. So through these platforms, many girls and young women have been learning, but currently that platform has been adopted by the government in almost 46 schools, and they are using it actually to cover the gap that they have of teacher to student ratio. The schools which lack teachers, they're using the same platform to deliver learning materials and lessons to other schools which don't have enough teachers. So the solutions that these girls are developing are not only actually serving them, but they are continuing to serve the nation at large, and also increasing opportunities for them, and also for opportunities for the entire country. The girls in a program, because of the skills that they've gained and the ability to create innovations and all that, this gives them also the opportunity, also the competitive edge to stand out when applying for different university scholarships. And this has made them, many of them actually, who are from really low income earning families, to get fully sponsored scholarships in the US, for example, University of Rochester and other universities in Africa, and also national universities. This, the ICT skill is so powerful, or girls in ICT or in STEM, because it doesn't only enable them to have a good academic performance, but it helps them to think about the lives they want to live, and also to participate equally in different discussions and confidently contribute. And also brings more opportunities for education, for economic empowerment, all that. We've experienced all that. I would like to finish by saying, if we continue providing education, the skills, and also provide mentorship and incubation, because not everyone gets access to the knowledge that one would need to start. So like in our case, we have an incubation program and mentorship program where they are mentored in different aspects and they're able to improve their lives. So if we continue to provide different opportunities and solutions, for sure we will together bridge the tech digital gap that is available right now. Yeah, so thank you very much. I'm so thankful to be here. I look forward to further discussions.
Hello, everyone. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Marie-Jeanne and all you wonderful panelists who just spoke. So much information and so good to hear everything you had to say. And after hearing Dr. Baskerville speak and knowing that so many of my friends went to Howard University, I'm now upset that I didn't do that also. Anyway, I am just I shouldn't say intervening, I'm just coming on just to remind you, tell you all that we are running so far behind that I'm going to be encouraging Marie-Jeanne to be short with her questions and the responses also to be equally short so that we can make up for time that has been lost. Okay? Thank you all. Now back to you, Marie-Jeanne.
Yes, thank you. Okay, do you hear me? Well, we're going to have some short questions then. Dr. Baskerville, a friend of mine from Togo in West Africa told me one day, if you want to make a difference, get involved in politics. Do you agree with this sentence? It's a question for Dr. Baskerville. Hello? Hello, Dr. Baskerville?
Can you hear?
Yeah, did you hear my question?
Can you hear me? Yeah. I did hear your question. Sorry, they needed to unmute me. I look at the world somewhat differently, and I think that if you want to make a difference, you find a way to align your profession with your passions and serve in your family, in your community, your faith institutions, wherever there are people or wherever there's a void where you have some skills, some preparation, or some interest in making a difference. I think if you think of life as, I want to make a difference, I want to be a politician, that's short-sighted, and many times it overlooks the service component. The best politicians are ardent servers. They're serving in their community. They're providing voice for the voiceless. So I wouldn't necessarily say, I want to make a difference, so I'm going to be a politician. Go into your community and serve, and let the community see that you're making a difference and that you're a strong voice for them. And then perhaps they might encourage the person to go into elective office or selective office or appointive office.
Thank you very much for your answer. A question for Suhar Araya. How does Facebook address the question of economics, equity of women in a way that can be transferred to other sectors of the society? it was a question for Samhar Araya of Facebook. I know that we are far. I am in France, in Paris, and she is in the States. So the connection is sometimes weak.
I don't see
her. Okay. Okay, if we don't mind, I have another question for our friend from Tanzania. Carolina, do you hear me? Caroline, do you hear me?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. Did you get any financial support to do your app?
Yes, we've got financial support. Once we started and had something going, we had financial support from different organizations from the international world, and also and other financial support from corporate companies, especially telecom companies. They were really so supportive, and it's women empowerment and digital skills and in education.
To ask a question to Honorable Mabel Torres. Is the connection good? Minister Mabel Torres.
Sí, estoy escuchando perfectamente.
Yeah, do you hear me? With the limitation of women and people of color failing to choose science as their key interest, how can your model of promoting a sustainable microeconomy to enabling scientific innovation for the development and commercialization of local products take place?
Bueno, yo quiero compartir una experiencia desde la práctica, y es primero lo que es generar valor alrededor de los activos y los recursos que tenemos en el territorio. Se puede convertir también en una forma de motivar a nuestras niñas y a nuestros jóvenes en general a que la ciencia se convierta en una vocación y se convierta en un proyecto de vida. Y un poco el mensaje que tenemos que transmitir es que a través de la ciencia, la tecnología y la innovación nosotros podemos generar valor agregado. Como les contaba, en el programa Más Mujer, Más Ciencia, Más Equidad, con los dos componentes, que uno es la formación científica, pero el otro es la generación de conocimiento para construir bienes y servicios. Hay un reto muy importante, sobre todo en un país como Colombia, que es poder conectar la ciencia, el conocimiento formal, las diferentes formas de producir conocimiento con los saberes ancestrales. Y ese es un trabajo que yo he estado haciendo ya desde hace más de 15 años, generando un modelo de bioeconomía que valora la biodiversidad, pero también los saberes del territorio para generar valor. Un ejercicio práctico, y es cuando nosotros empezamos a generar productos y servicios con valor agregado que se revierten en una empresa de base tecnológica, vamos creando más capacidades en los territorios y más espacios, primero para que haya una economía autónoma, pero sobre todo para que nuestros profesionales de la diáspora puedan regresar a sus territorios. En Colombia hay una práctica tradicional, y es que los jóvenes se forman, se entrenan y normalmente se quedan por fuera de los territorios porque no hay unas oportunidades que los inviten a regresar. Sin embargo, nosotros hemos hecho un trabajo, y es que veamos, sobre todo las mujeres, que sí hay una oportunidad de territorio y que no solamente es emplearse en una empresa, sino crear sus propias empresas. A través de esto, entonces, se articulan los conocimientos ancestrales, se valoran los activos y empezamos a construir empresas de base tecnológica que traigan mucho más capital, infraestructura, recursos financieros, inversionistas, relacionamiento con las universidades, pero sobre todo que ese capital humano que se formó pueda regresar y estos productos realmente se puedan poner en una economía de escala, primero que abastece los mercados locales, no tienen que ser mercados nacionales porque todavía no hay una capacidad instalada, y que a medida que las empresas van creciendo, entonces podemos pensar en abastecer los mercados nacionales e internacionales.
Merci. Sorry, I have another question for you. You have mentioned a program for more women in science. How can you share this program with other women from the diaspora?
Bueno, este de hecho es un programa también pensado para las mujeres en la diáspora, porque nosotros lo que nosotros queremos es conectar precisamente estas diferentes formas de producción de conocimiento y a través de programas de mentoría conectar a las niñas de una región con nuestras otras profesionales negras en otros países del mundo. Y de hecho, uno de los grandes principios, y que yo decía que esta puede ser una red muy poderosa, es que no solamente este foro se quede aquí, sino que nosotras nos podamos conocer. Inclusive yo invitaría a que pudiéramos viajar a nuestros países, conocer nuestras iniciativas para que no se nos queden solamente en un foro. Entonces, Más Mujer, Más Ciencia, Más Equidad también es un programa para conectar la diáspora afro de todo el mundo.
Thank you very much. Is it possible to have the last question to Araya? Is she there? She has left already.
Hello?
Arya, okay, maybe. Facebook has gone, unfortunately. Oh, okay. Thank you very much for all this sentence, which was very, very inspiring. Now we have the opportunity to hear again Shaggy and learn more about the ARDN red card with Mr. Jibril Jallow.
Hey everybody, this is Shaggy. All kind of violence against women and children. I want everybody to go click on redcardpledge.com and get involved. You know what I mean? Sign up, everybody. And we all got to do whatever we can. Much love.
I think we have another red card video to play from a young lady by the name of Solani. She's from South Africa. Okay, that's coming up. Here she is.
And that's how long it's taken me to give a red card to all forms of discrimination and violence against women and children across the world. We know that in South Africa, we continue to be haunted by hashtags Am I Next and movements that showcase women who have brutally been murdered at the hands of men. Siyoyika singabafazi base South Africa. We ask that the men of South Africa stand with us in saying we give a red card to gender-based violence in South Africa. For this is a fight we can't fight alone, And we challenge you as our fathers, brothers, uncles, to isolate the perpetrators around you, to isolate those guilty that you know so that they don't feel comfortable in your presence. How long will we continue to hashtag am I next, to live in fear, and for this to be an issue that supposedly has no consequence in South Africa? We can't wait for leadership to stand with us. We in society need to take that stand together and fight it. See Misengembambo in South Africa and make this country uncomfortable, and the men who are guilty of such uncomfortable. Enough is enough.
Yeah, it is. Thank you so much for that wonderful Red Card campaign, www.redcardpledge.com, from the statement from South Africa and the Red Card statement from Shaggy. It is now my pleasure to call on Mayor Frank Jackson, Vice President for International Affairs of the World Alliance of Mayors, to share the perspectives of the mayors with us. Mayor Jackson, you have the floor, please.
Yes, thank you. Greetings to all in attendance to the second Women of the Diaspora Summit addressing economic equity. This has been a well-organized and very thought-provoking forum featuring excellent presenters and subject matter experts. I wish to personally thank the leadership of ARDN for this time to speak. I am Frank D. Jackson, past mayor of Prairie View, Texas, home of Prairie View A&M University, and currently serving as the Vice President for International Relations for the World Conference of Mayors. So on behalf of the World Conference of Mayors and the Historic Black Towns and Settlements Alliance, where the Honorable Mayor Ed Jones, Mayor of Grambling, Louisiana, serves as the president, and the Honorable Johnny Ford, past mayor of Tuskegee, Alabama, is the founder, we salute the African Renaissance and Diaspora Network for its leadership at the point on the frontiers of change by hosting these critically needed series of Women of the Diaspora Summits, which are a component of ARDN's Red Card campaign, committed to ending all forms of gender-based discrimination and violence. The World Conference of Mayors and the Historical Black Towns and Settlements Alliance, in testimony of our support to ARDN and its life-changing work, adopted a resolution outlining our efforts to assist ARDN reach its Red Card campaign goals and to vigorously advocate to our constituencies for them to leverage all opportunities that will lift women and girls out of poverty and put an end to all violence and abuse against them. On a personal note, having been raised by a single mother that worked several jobs to provide for her 3 sons, I know firsthand that when given the opportunity, women like my mother will vigorously use available resources to earn credentials and acquire new skills to continuously improve the quality of life, not only of their families, but of their entire social and economic networks. So to the World Conference of Mayors, the HPTSA, we all call upon mayors and elected officials throughout the African diaspora and the world to support the Red Card campaign in these series of women and diaspora summits by adopting policies and supporting programs and initiatives that will lift women and girls out of poverty and will remove all gender-based barriers and empower women and girls and advance them towards economic and financial self-sufficiency. Again, thank you, African Renaissance and Diaspora Network, for this opportunity to bring greetings, and may the grand architect of our lives continue to bless and keep you all safe and well. Thank you.
unmute me. Okay, she needs to unmute me.
We can hear you, Mr. Dubril.
That's it, yeah. Thank you so much, Mayor Jackson, very, very key member of the senior management of the African Renaissance and Diaspora Network as well. It is now my pleasure to give the floor to the co-chair of the ARDN Higher Education Initiative, Chancellor of Webster University, Dr. Elizabeth Beth Strobel, under whose leadership, jointly with the leadership of the Executive Director of the National Council for Negro Women, the call to action for this summit was prepared. Before presenting the call to action, Dr. Strobel will present the excellent work that has been done by Webster University to promote two things. One, the Red Card campaign. Two, the Women of the Diaspora series. You have the floor, Dr. Strobel.
Good day to everyone, and it's my honor to speak at the close of the summit. Thank you, Dr. Diallo, for the invitation. I want to start by expressing gratitude to my colleagues at Webster University. I'm honored to share with you the means by which all of my colleagues and I are engaging our Webster students in the Red Card campaign. Webster University is a global university with our main campus in St. Louis, Missouri, in the United States, and with campuses across the United States as well as in Europe, Asia, Central Asia, and Africa. We are popularizing the SDGs and mobilizing members of our community to sign the Red Card Pledge through watch parties for today's summit, locally hosted panels, creations of videos like the one you saw, and social media, research conducted by our students and colleagues, direct outreach to members of the community, and library exhibits as just examples. We have issued 200 invitations to colleges and universities across the United States to join our efforts, and we look forward to expanding the circle of those committed to ending violence and discrimination against girls and women. So it's my honor to speak on behalf of the Webster colleagues and to also tell you that Janice Mathis wants to express the support of NCNW for the ongoing work of Arden, particularly in the areas of economic empowerment, careers, training, labor, education, technology and infrastructure, violence, and the role of women and legal reform and politics. And now, the outcome statement that has been created by this body to express what has happened during this wonderful summit. As background, on February 11th, 2021, the Republic of Costa Rica, the United Nations Population Fund, the United Nations Entity for Gender Equality and Empowerment of Women, and the African Renaissance and Diaspora Network convened this second summit in the Women of the Diaspora Virtual Global Summit Series. Focused on economic equity, this summit, U.S. African Development Foundation, was convened in close collaboration with the National Council for Negro Women and Webster University. Over 1,300 participated in our first summit on gender and racial discrimination. As context, the Women of the Diaspora Summits engage leaders shaping the future, addressing the issues captured in the 17 UN Sustainable Development Goals. The Arden Red Card campaign is a pledge that borrows the symbolism of a red card in the game of football or soccer, as you wish, signifying a significant infraction of the rules. This campaign, part of the framework of the Pathway to Solutions initiative, seeks to obtain 1 million global commitments by the FIFA World Cup in November 2022 in Qatar by inviting participants to give a red card to all forms of discrimination and violence against women and girls, consistent with SDG number 5. On February 11th, 2021, the day marked by the United Nations as the International Day of Women and Girls in Science, we called upon all assembled to assure that girls and women can pursue their destiny, potential, and promise by ending economic inequities that harm them now and in the future. The present summit was formed and celebrated 2 important milestones affecting women and people of African descent. First, through the efforts of the Republic of Costa Rica and with the strong support of its partners in the international community and civil society, the United Nations General Assembly adopted by acclamation August 31st as the International Day of People of African Descent. Second, after 243 years, the United States of America has elected its first female vice president, as well as first vice president of African descent into office. The summit comes after the landmark Nairobi Summit on ICPD 25, co-convened by the governments of Kenya and Denmark together with UNFPA, affirming that empowering women and girls is the bedrock of a just, safe, and equitable world. It takes place in a critical year, when the Gender Equality Forum is expected to take place in Mexico and Paris with a view to accelerate progress toward gender equality. The multi-stakeholder forum is convened by UN Women in partnership with youth and civil society, co-hosted by France and Mexico. The summit examined the issue of economic justice for women from the perspectives of state officials, civil society, non-governmental organizations, women engaged in scientific pursuits, as well as younger women. The summit focused special attention on the harsh and disproportionate impact that COVID-19 is having on the economic and social condition of women and girls. Perspectives from the Americas, Europe, and Africa were also presented. I conclude the outcome statement with our call to action. Sign the Red Card Pledge to end all forms of discrimination and violence against women and girls. Invest time, expertise, and financial resources in organizations and agencies that increase economic opportunities for girls and women. Support and demand accountability for international commitments addressing women's economic empowerment, including the Beijing Platform for Action, the International Conference on Population and Development Program of Action, the ICPD Plus 25 commitments, the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, and the series of conventions on gender equality concluded under the auspices of the International Labor Organization. Speak out and safeguard women against violence perpetrated against women in the workplace in every form, including psychological, emotional, and physical sexual harassment and abuse. Mentor girls and women to establish and achieve educational and career goals. Assure equitable employment and entrepreneurial opportunities and compensation for women in each of our businesses and places of employment, including by ensuring equal access to economic resources, including land, credit, science and technology, vocational training, education, information, communication, and markets. Recognize that the economic empowerment of women and girls is inextricably intertwined with their health, and that their ability to make real choices in all aspects of their lives, including their bodies. Use the influence of the summit participants to move state actors to expand and enforce policies that advance the goals of the summit and this call to action. Actively engage in the Generation Equality Forum and its lead up, including the Act for Equal campaign, to make sure that the perspectives of the women in the diaspora are fully reflected in the forum. And finally, support the mobilization of ambitious commitments by governments, private sector, UN entities, civil society, and other actors in the action coalitions, which will be the outcome of the Generation Equality Forum. Back to you, Dr. Diallo.
Thank you so much, Chancellor Elizabeth Beth Trouble. I would like to take this opportunity again to pay great respect to you for your leadership, not only in terms of the mobilization within the higher education initiatives of ARDN, but also showing that Webster University is truly a global organization which is helping to popularize the Sustainable Development Goals in Africa, in the diaspora, and around the world, a special project for the United Nations. So thank you very much again. And thank you for the excellent work on the call to action, which is really very, very important on the way forward. Thank you. Thank you. So it's now my turn to make the closing remarks. I'm very, very happy to note that through the excellent support of the platform provided by UNFPA, we've been able not only to be on Zoom here, but also we have being followed on Facebook, on YouTube, around the world, and that's a tremendous achievement. And I wanted to again thank UNFPA for the excellent support of the platform and all kind of support provided by the UNFPA. On behalf of the co-organizers of the second Women of the Diaspora Summit, I would like to thank each and every one of you for joining us today to discuss the important topic of economic justice and empowerment for women and girls. Now that we're at the end of the summit, it is important for us to ask ourselves, where do we go from here? How do we translate everything we heard and discussed today into concrete actions? So many of our representatives have spoken about prioritizing women's rights in their campaigns, international commitments addressing the empowerment of women and girls, including through the Beijing Platform for Action, ICPD +25, and the upcoming Generation Equality Forum that have been and will be made. We must be ready to demand that promise must be kept. Discrimination and violence against women take many forms. We need to be vigilant and speak out and safeguard women and girls against those who perpetrate and those who are complicit in the perpetration of such discrimination and violence. Women and girls often face challenges in access to resources for economic self-dependence. We must recognize that these challenges have been put in place by those in power to maintain the status quo. We need to break through the concrete ceilings built by those in power to suppress female potential, promise, and power. We must be mentors to, investors in, and allies to girls and women. The economic empowerment of women and girls is tied to their health and their freedom to make real choices in all aspects of their lives, including their bodies. Women's rights are human rights. No person is free until women are free. If you have not done so already, and you see the pictures on the screen, you can sign the Red Card Pledge to put an end to all forms of discrimination and violence against women and girls at www.redcardpledge.com. I would like to take this opportunity to come back again and thank the chair of the board of directors of the African Renaissance and Diaspora Network, Honorable Constance Newman, for the untiring efforts that she has made, not only through this summit series, but throughout the organization itself. I've mentioned in my opening statement my appreciation to the team of the African Renaissance and Diaspora Network, which has brought us to where we are today. And thank you. We look forward to joining us at the next Women of the Diaspora Summit. Thank you very much. And this brings to an end the second Women of the Diaspora Summit. Thank you very much again.
Thank you very much, Jibril, for a job well done, and for marshalling the troops as you've always done, skillfully. Are you there?
I'm here,
Okay. Yeah, we thank you very much for your very, intelligent leadership, and not to mention Connie, who is well, I would say a diplomat as well, but you both have been very effective in leading this forward. And we can't forget someone like Flo, who has helped in developing all the programs, and of course, Beth, and Arlene, David, James, everyone who has worked so hard to make this possible.
And Gordon.
Okay, got it.
All right. Gordon, let's move on, please.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your kind words.
I think we are at the end. We would have normally had Shaggy's video, but we put this up instead of Shaggy's video.
All right. Okay.
So we are at the end.
Okay. Thank you very much again, and look forward to being in touch. Thank you. Bye.
Okay. Bye, everyone.